Notorious Vanguard.
Knowledge born.
Yeah.
United Front.
Tell it.
What you want, what you want, what you want.
To the Knowledge Radio.
We in here. What you got? Dot.
Work hard as a slave to one day be your savior. The wave unwavering. This is a labor of love. Rise with a purpose every day. Invigorated. If we were on TV, we'd be 10 times syndicated. If we waited for validation, a paycheck or accolades, we'd be starved, already lost or ran away. But when you're square solid and you circle too, you don't need a place for silence. The concept is conquered through media, not areas of people activity. A mix that don't lose ethnicity, tightness that don't lose elasticity. Explicitly, this isn't where we give the novice regard. Nah, this is where knowledge is born. Last time that I checked, I'm undefeated. Deliver edicts, can't resist when the gods build and manifest freedom. When lines get crossed, they may push a loss, cause they get handed a check. We kick a can and cancel your cancerous gestures. A prophet vision, precision, the prescription for the sickness is to inoculate your fate with the winning. Arrogant beginnings turn to humble endings. And US with KBA is a win-win. 1K, 1K.
They say it takes a village to raise a child. Now, us as parents, when we send our kids out into society and off to school, we're not always necessarily there to provide that extra security blanket, to be that extra sense of security for our children. This is where the KJ13 Anti-Bullying Inc. comes into play. It provides extra knowledge. It gives extra outlets. They do food drives. So for any information that you may have, please contact King James 13 Anti-Bullying Inc. INC, that is, at gmail.com, or contact 463-333-2268 today for all information.
Well, it's no shine in the tail.
Snapping off film.
I'm affiliated. 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 I'm affiliated.
This video is under fair use. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act in 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or purpose use tips the balance in favor of fair use. All rights and credit go directly to its rightful owners. No copyright infringement intended. Enjoy. Oh yeah. On your way out, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment, man. This is the Argument League. Turn up.
Shout out to the family. Let me make sure I'm good. I switched my mic around and no, it's not too loud, baby. Hold on. Pseudo killer. Oh, with the pseudo killer. What the fuck do you do? Pseudo. It's cool. Shout out to the family, man. This is the boy Swab out snapping off entertainment. The AOI SVDL Argument League, whole bunch of Black Power shit, man. Shout out to Bingo on the track, Z on the cam, that's snapping off fam. Shout out to Solar Man, the commissioner, Sullivan Debate League, the greatest debate league in the world on the debate league on YouTube. Shout out to Bingo on the track, Z on the cam, said them already. Shout out to Knowledge One Alive, do the knowledge right. Knowledge One Alive on YouTube. Shout out to the AOI Holly Gold, man, Brandon Bay, Wicked Radical, Harpoon Pro, Black Ground Zero, Hurricane Katrina, the King James 13, Anti-Bully Inc., a non-profit organization aimed at preventing bullying by bringing awareness to it. What? Shout out to the judges, shout out to the peers, and the reason we here, man, the people of SVDL. Shout out to Rozzy Kaji Harris in the building. Charles A. the Driller Gang smoking on them dead outs. Bang, bang, gang, gang. Shout out to Nichols Pickles in the building. And I Spear Lions. Shout out to the fam bam. Shout out to the fam bam. Shout out to the fam bam. How y'all feeling? What y'all on? What y'all about? You already know what it is. It's another day. Got a little time. So I said, shit, let me go live and kick it with the people that I missed the most. And here we are. Argument League. It's the Spinny. It's the Sparks. Shout out to Spinny Sparks. Yeah, man. I just wanted to start up a live, but that Ukrainian shit was on my mind. I know y'all seen it. Shabo! I know y'all seen it. All them motherfucking black people in Ukraine. Now, I don't know the situation. They could be refugees. Already there, you know, looking for shelter or whatever the fuck. But come on, man. Let's be 100% real, man. Like, for real. They're not gonna care about your black ass. Your husband, your wife, your grandparents, your kids. When shit hit the fan and missiles is flying, will the officers, the military, have room and resources for you? Nah. I can understand and I can imagine there might be factors that are different, that and that, but that is the situation black people are in America. You're a nation within a nation. Shout out to Lilith's Revenge. You're a nation of people within a nation of people. And when shit goes down, you're going to find out you didn't have no resources. You didn't stack no resources. You didn't create none for yourself. Nigga, sit your ass down. Why would you expect to get on this train? Why would you expect to get on this plane, this bus? Because you like the who's that? Roger, because you like the 76ers? Because you like the Philadelphia 76ers? You think they gonna let you on a train to freedom? You think they gonna share their last little bit of food with a motherfucker that their African students, the Jamaican government picked up their students last week, reported by a Jamaican student. That's hard. Shout out to Jamaica. Shout out to Jamaica. Tiff XYZ2 is in the building. I will hard all my spears at Shapo House. I had that shit. But yeah, like real talk. What do you expect for it to be, man? Like, here, you know, all rations, I share food. If it ain't like that, be thankful. But you better be prepared for that. Because that's reality. He said, I own the 76ers. I bought it yesterday. You still not getting your black ass on that train. You bought the 76ers. You should have bought a train to get about this motherfucker when they drop that high percussion bomb. That motherfucker blow your lungs up. Shout out to Luna. Shout out to Luna. That's what you should have did. Yeah, shit is crazy, man. Shout out to Katja. We also picked up South Africans studying and working in Ukraine. I'm glad you exist because Ukraine showed and picked their ass up. So I'm glad you exist. The picked up South Africans. Are those white South Africans? Africa needs to take accountability and provide transportation. 50 countries on the continent can't come together to provide transportation for the students. Ridiculous. No pushback on Ukraine. We go straight to Africa. Africa is supposed to send people to Ukraine because it's black people here, and I know y'all ain't gonna fuck with them. So, yes, black people definitely need to take a fucking accountability. Black people definitely need to recognize who the fuck you are, what you have, and stop being so fucking satisfied and enjoying leasing life. You're leasing life, and it shows. You're being overtaxed for it. You gotta wait till other motherfuckers get bored with it. That's just it. You're leasing life. So it's like, yes, I can see everyone having some type of problem. Black people in America. Black people in America. You fine? Are you okay? Are you comfortable? You feel safe? You feel safe? Like we had fucking what? Hurricane Katrina. You saw what happened in Louisiana with FEMA. You feel safe? Do you feel safe? You saw start all the way back. You go to Tulsa, Oklahoma. They blocked off the motherfucking cities, wouldn't let motherfuckers see refuge in that. The fucking Watts riots, where they put all the resources in the white neighborhoods to protect their stores and didn't mind the looters destroying black neighborhoods. Hurricane Katrina. Yeah, shout out to South Africa. They did pick them up because they call themselves black and know damn well their skin is brown. And you're a fucking dummy. Like anybody who's still confused about why black people call themselves black is an idiot. You're a self-hating idiot. I'm not gonna keep stopping my college class to talk to elementary students whose mothers just dropped them off at school for the first time, and it's their first lunch, their first backpack, and they got tears in their eyes because they never been away from their mommy. And the letter J was only invented and your skin is not black, it's brown. No one identifies themselves as the color of their skin. Stop picking on black people. Take your big Aboriginal, know who you is. I got a book. My grandma told me as over there and deal with them people. Black people not in your way. Black Americans never feel safe. We have other people telling us that racism isn't a factor in America. And still find a way to. I just told you I'm not going to stop my college class to explain to idiots who don't care enough about black people to do the study on why black people. It's not even a study. Obviously, our skin not black. So if that's where you stop that, oh, they call themselves black, but they not black. Oh. Yes, because it's insulting that a grown ass person who can name themselves I am eternal energy possessed still don't know why black people. So you know why. So you really just want to bump heads and get into it with people who call themselves black and undermine their right to define themselves, undermine their culture, and push some other learned expression that you got after the fact. And you're a black hurt because you called yourself black. I get it all. It mean deaf in legalese. That shit is elementary. It's old school. Take your ass back to the HOK and go and get impressed by Unc, crackhead ass, and Sonetta, dope fiend ass. Go over there. We're past all of the letter J didn't exist and all of that bullshit. So yes, it's very insulting. So get in tune, man, and you can move the fuck around, bro. Like real talk. I'm tired of motherfuckers stagnating my people. Every time we move to a higher fucking level of talk, we gotta reset the class and go back to elementary to explain to motherfuckers why black people call themselves black. This shit is stupid. I'm tired of this loophole of ignorance. Every time we get so high, somebody gets uncomfortable and we gotta dumb ourselves down and show them love. No, fuck you. Go over there with people who understand why you call yourself whatever the fuck you call yourself and leave us the fuck alone. I'm tired of starting over to reintroduce people to black. When are Pan-Africans going to get together and get transportation for African standards stranded in Ukraine? I have no idea. I'm not a Pan-African. I'm not. I'm not a Pan-African. I don't believe everybody came out of Africa. I don't really know what when I hear Pan-African, it says all black people are from Africa. Well, that's not true. If you want to say life started in Africa, I don't believe that's true. But I get what you're saying. So white people are African because they came from Africa. Asians are African because they came from Africa. I know dark-skinned women. So, like, when I hear Pan-African, I hear the only reason you're in America is because of slavery. The only reason you're in England is because of slavery. And I know that black people, Africans were global people before white people were even on earth. Black people had people on every piece of land that was fucking okay to be on. No, we weren't trying to conquer it or rule it or build empires and kingdoms. You know, the Native Americans lived very humbly. They wasn't concerned about pyramids and all of that shit. They just they was in love with life. They was obedient to the creator. They said we eat off the trees, we drink out the river, we kill, what we eat, and we use everything off the body. That's it. So black people were everywhere. That's it. Black people were in Asia, it's recorded. Black people were in Europe, it's recorded. America, North and South, it's recorded. In the frozen places, it's recorded. So I don't know. I'm not a Pan-African. I'm a black person who are descendants of Africans and descendants of Native Americans, and I have some Asian ancestry, some white ancestry. Black people are a new people that came out of destruction of indigenous people globally. So I care for people. That's just it. I care for people. But I know who my priority is. Black people in America. That's my priority. That's the team I'm on. That's when black people in America start smoking crack, the outside world say, look at Suave over there smoking crack. When black people in America start raping, they say, look at Suave over there raping. So I give a fuck about the team that's wearing the same uniform as me. So when niggas go out here and act like players, pimps, become molesters, rapists, all this other goofy ass shit, over violent, under motherfucking logical people, I give a fuck. You're fucking up my team uniform. And for some reason, you just don't want to get it together. Because if we get it together, then there's no more excuses. My people love excuses. Why you didn't do this? Well, the white man. And then on top of that, niggas. And then my feet kind of hurt. And then my money got to go toward. That's it. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It just exists eternally, and the energy that flows through every living being is eternal. A random fact. At least you got back on track. We all know that. And once again, that's hella fucking elementary. That's what I'm saying. We're not impressed by your name, We're not impressed by your mentality of being anti-black, and we're not impressed by the random fucking fact energy can't be. Yes, energy cannot be created nor destroyed, as far as we know. I hope you're impressed with yourself. Now, can we move on to higher fucking shit? Can we move on to higher fucking levels of fucking conversations and try to impress each other with shapes and colors and sounds? Can we stop trying to impress each other with shapes, colors, and sounds and actually put our bread together, buy some land, and concentrate our numbers and be real men and allow women to be real women? No, we're just going to stay scattered, struggling to stay afloat individually, or feeling better at our condition because I ain't eating ramen noodles. I get to go out to Papa Do's. I don't gotta wear Pumas. I wear Jordans. You still a broke, slave ass nigga that know if he stopped, his whole family would fail. Have you read the color? Oh, god damn, excuse me. I thought you was going back to being smart again. They be like, too many niggas, not enough men. Shout out to Chris in the building. There's 54 countries here with differing global alliances. Each must help its own. Maybe that's the problem, you know? People alliances mean more to them than their own, right? Black Law's definitions, that entry level woke sleep material. Yeah, bro. Yeah, bro. I'm always on track. I just want to have clear information. That's what is important at the end of the day, man. With peace to you, man. I don't want to be someone who causes you stress. I'm tired of having dumbass conversations with grown ass niggas that will kill you. That will kill you in the street over a fucking disagreement. I'm just tired of talking to y'all niggas. Maya Aisha Yamaha Alpha, peace to you, says, and Incognito say, I wish I could find the time to care about their issues in an Eastern European country who have been historically racist and divisive. Where my shit at? Where my shit at? Let me see. Is that it? Yeah, and I get all that. I get that. I care. I care about the racist European white motherfuckers over there getting their goddamn babies murdered on bikes. I care. I'm not a devil. I'm not a demon. I'm not the opposite of the white man. I'm a black man. And we are us with or without the presence of the cracker. See what I'm saying? I'm not slavery hurt. I'm not Jim Crow hurt. I'm aware. I know my people better do something for my people first and let motherfuckers don't do shit you can't afford. But at the end of the day, when I see that motherfucking shit getting invaded, I feel sorry for them. Do I want to grab arms or, send half my goddamn savings over there? No. But I don't wish that on them. I'm not looking at it like, haha, finally, white people dying. This will satisfy my black heart. No. I'm trying to really wrap my mind around the whole thing. Why is this happening? Why are they fucking fighting? Who wants this land? Who wants this territory? Who's playing this game? Because Putin is not running into the street slapping Ukrainians out of their homes. He's sending other people to die. Hey, peace to you, Lilith Revenge. Thank you. I have been listening to old streams. I was never around with the lives. Been busy. That's what's up. I mean, it sucks about what's happening over there, but why do people think it's Black America's job to solve it? We got enough shit going on over here. Whoever asks Black people to solve that shit? I hope, motherfucker. But you know what? That's how it go. Y'all got a little money buying the Philadelphia 76ers and all. Kanye's a billionaire. Y'all got more money than ever. Why don't y'all help us? In the arms of an angel. You feel me? And black motherfuckers gonna be in church, getting their money together, sending that shit out. Black people need to do for black people. The whole world's waiting on it. Nobody's respecting you. You like the man that goes to work, right? 2 jobs and a side hustle. You fucking fix cars and you sell weed on the side. And then you bring the money home and you pay the bills to a house your name ain't on the lease. You know, you staying in a project house with a white girl, and you go out and work and side hustle, and then you come home, pay the $35 rent, you know, put food in the fucking refrigerator, buy her some clothes, buy her some fast food, get her hair done, all of this other shit. And motherfuckers still don't respect you. They still don't. Because she's shown she don't care about you. She done cheated on you. She beat your ass, put your ass out when you lost your job, only took you back when you got your job, even though the rent was paid up. People will respect you more if you took that money and bought yourself a studio fucking apartment, bought you a car, and got you some clothes, and got on your feet. That's what it would be. Shout out to Malik Rain in the building. You already know, man. You right, Suave. You better than me, though. I watched that video of the Russian tank run over a person's car and chuckled a little bit. Shit was hella cartoonish and ridiculous. Yeah, I don't think we want to be that weak, Chris. I don't think we want to be the type of bitch-ass nigga that feels sympathy for a motherfucker when they get ran over by a tank and they got blonde hair and blue eyes. You know, in our culture, everything makes you gay. If you have sympathy for somebody, you're one sympathetic moment away from sucking a cock. That's how our community is. If I care, I feel like a woman, and therefore I'm gonna be attracted to men. And next thing you know, I'm gonna be fucking rubbing some man's hairy chest against my back. I don't want us to get normalized to the fact that people are murdered. Innocent people murdered because higher ups don't like the size of their penis. I'm tired of that. And I think we'll have a little bit more sympathy once this shit comes here, because it's coming here. War will be on American soil. There will be jets over our skies and tanks going down our streets. This is an old fight of white folks that has nothing to do with us. Black people need to concern themselves with rebuilding family and generational wealth while white people destroy the world around you with your generational wealth and your rebuilt family. While white people just rule and destroy the world around you. Incognito, that is a fact. We need to rebuild. We need to have general wealth, but we definitely need to be concerned with global wars going on in areas where we live. There's no reason to separate the two. It's the tequila in the building. Let me try a little bit different. Chris, I definitely agree with you, but the laws of this country is what the standard is to go on. The black law, oh shit, man. Y'all goddamn indigenous aboriginal motherfuckers. I'm so glad y'all got let outside finally. I can't wait for y'all to calm down and actually be a productive part of the community. Pan-Africans always look for black Americans to save. Yeah. I ain't got nothing against that. Lilith, hey, my dear. Putin wants to bring back imperialistic Russia, not our fight. Yeah. Sure. Matrix A, Suave in chat. Shout out to you, peace to you. It's the Queen. It's the Cascade. It's the Queen Cascade. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Shout out to the Lilith again. We don't need to laugh at this, but it has nothing to do with us. War is not funny. Yeah, I mean, it has something to do with us. They're living on your earth, blowing shit up. I don't know if you how much you can ignore that. Now, I don't need to be like the free Russians or free Ukraines or starting a hashtag or starting to go for me, but I definitely concerned with motherfuckers feeling free to drop nuclear missiles on each other. We need to build something and be able to express that. Nigga, how is the answer for a gun and a bullet a bigger gun and a faster bullet? A bigger bullet and a faster gun. It's like me and Bingo was talking last night, right? And you know, he believe in aliens. And so it's like humans are so fucking stupid, right? Like he believes we were a mistake. We shouldn't have really happened, but instead of destroying us, they just put us off on a far out planet. Like they'll never reach here. By time humans get enough intelligence and advanced technology enough to actually build something to shoot them out into outer space, they done been and built a missile and blew the earth up. It's like a catch-22. If we gain the ability to space travel, we will use it to destroy ourselves, meaning we will never ever travel space. We can't stay peaceful and kind enough to advance technology to the point where technology is ahead of war. Like most of the technology that I see being built is for war. It comes out of the military field. And then it ends up in your kitchen because it keeps windows closed. It's a good light source. It cleans water. It makes a fucking tire more efficient. But it starts off militaristic. I definitely agree with being aware of what's going on. Man. Tension in the building. She says, so I'm telling out right now, it's too many black people who don't like each other. Other we going to see, hold on. Other we going to see how far that's going to get you. You need a mini mansion so you could get a backyard so you can breathe. Facts. You're gonna need solar power generators indoor with solar power panels and generators indoor and outdoor. You're gonna need radios and flashlights. You're gonna need weapons to protect yourself. You're gonna need food to grow. Facts. And we got that. I know this war is gonna raise the gas price, so at least gotta be privy to the surface. But if we bought some land and concentrated our numbers, we wouldn't really need cars. We're not traveling all the way on the other side of town to go to work. We're not traveling to the next city over to go to work. We're working from home. We're working in our own fields. We're working in our own factories on our land. We could walk or ride a bike, a skateboard, a scooter. Putin wants to dominate. USA is on the list depending how much he can run through Europe. Yeah. You need to grow food in the backyard, have a mini park built there for the kids to play and get their energy out and have plenty indoor things to do like knitting, sewing, writing books, and online businesses. There you go. And those who hate black women because you scared her away from you, you're going to be somewhere else. Yeah. They're going to be over there making the mixed people. Aliens aren't real. I've been begging for them to come back up my ass for years and no days. Keeps windows closed. Yeah. The shit started off as an anti-inflammatory to make sure that fucking military people, when they get bombed, they got a couple more fucking seconds to survive. They could get out of the fuck. But guess what? It seals windows. So it's like, here we go. Putin wants a cyber war to empty our banking system as other countries. Man, you know what? Part of me is like, I can't wait for this shit to reach your head because, it's the great reset. Shout out to pro-black, shout out to pro-black, shout out to pro-black. But niggas might go back in slavery. You think if the electrical grills shut down, motherfucking grocery stores closed, and niggas got back out there in the fields and started growing their food, and woo, this, that, and the other. You know, it'll be big ass mule fed white people next to us tilling the field. Or you think they'll be like, hey, our guns against yours, get to work, buddy. Yeah. War seems to bring peace, and peace seems to bring war. It seems to be human nature. Yeah, but it's like war brings peace. People get tired of seeing people killed, being killed. And they say, you know what? I want peace. But what about that peace make people want to go to war? What about someone being peaceful, being tranquil, being cool, being kind, being loving, being giving, makes someone want to go to war? That's the whole ass nigga in you that be like, you know what? I can take this nigga shit. I can take this woman shit. And can't nobody do nothing to me. That's a very childish mentality. And if it's in the head of a man, it's some very horror shit. Men are supposed to be secure, comfortable. Men have to be careful with themselves. You have to be responsible with your body as a man. Because you can crush things and pull things apart. Pick things up and drop them very hard. It's the brother of Brandon. Peace cannot exist without war, and war cannot exist without peace. What? You got to explain that bar, Brandon. Yeah, like, long as I'm cool, you cool, we laughing. I suppose it's like the bullies in school who beat the quiet niggas ass for no reason. Yeah, because that's where they get until the quiet nigga loke up on their ass. Until the quiet nigga loke up on their ass, and then them bullies play victim. But yeah, that's all it is. It's the insecure motherfucker, you know, who said, you know what? I could do this to these motherfuckers and they can't defend themselves. And then when another motherfucker come around that can take their ass out, like, man, what's up with you, man? I like them shoes, man. Them some cool ass shoes right there. And that's some whole ass weak ass shit. It's the brother Brandon Bay is in the building, homework done, and he really about to kill him. What's good, big bro? And we need therapy. Why people need to start practicing medical awareness, medical health, and then inside their mini mansions. Think about it. You buy land, how you going to build your place with the TI? Huh? How you going to build your place with the TI? And I know you speak to Texan because you Instacarting. Move, Cash. Most people in power are insecure. Yeah. And can't control their counterparts. You know? I can imagine that. How you going to buy land, build your place at a time frame like this? We are indeed at a reset, but I had a dream. You had a dream. It was so real. The reset happened. There was a bunch of officers who were supposed to, well, buy land and concentrate your numbers. The greatest resource on earth is other people. We need each other. So we can't have each other unless we have land. So it doesn't matter how we get it. It's just there's no laws against us buying land. So we can buy land, concentrate our numbers, and then talk face to face, not on the internet, not over the phone, about what the fuck we need to do. Stop making ourselves targets, stop making ourselves domestic terrorists, and actually concentrate our numbers and talk face to face. Brandon Bay, you in the building?
What's happening, brother? How you?
Man, you already know, man. Good to hear from you, big dog. What's good, fam, bam?
You already know, man. Just tuning into another great episode. And you know I had some crazy shit to say, but I got good reasons.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Let us get that reasoning up out of you.
I want to ask you a question before I start this. Mm-hmm. How do you determine up from down?
How do I determine up from down?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not thinking too hard. It's where my feet land, you know, like when I get up, you know, I call it up. towards the center of the earth is down to me because of the gravitational pull that it has on our body. So that's how I determine down and up.
Okay, using parallels.
That. Thank you for teaching me that. That's what it's called.
In a nutshell, you're using parallels, right?
Fact. Okay, we in that thing.
So when I look at war and I look at peace, they are parallels of one another. The causality of each are similar. There's not necessarily any difference in the causality of war as there is to the causality of peace.
Okay, but the causality of peace being war, right, is people saying we're wasting resources. I'm tired of seeing people die. You know, I'm becoming more and more of a fucking monster. So you telling me peace does that to people and say, I'm tired of us being peaceful. We becoming less and less of a monster, you know?
No, that's how war goes. But peace it has a similar stimulus. So in essence, like in order to elicit peace, you would want to see the ending of war, right? You'd want to see the ending of carnage. You'd want to see the ending of hatred or uncomfortable situations.
Yeah, but how does war come out of peace? What do people get tired of seeing in peace that make them say, let's destroy each other?
It's not necessarily what people see. It's just human nature combined with ambition. So, for instance, what I would consider, and this is something that we deal with on not only this platform, but on multiple platforms. What I would consider wrong is not necessarily what someone else is going to consider wrong.
Absolutely.
We have people in other countries that freely rape and marry children, but we don't consider it right. In their understanding of life, they consider that correct. You get what I'm saying?
I can't explain the mind of a motherfucker like that, but I
no,
think
I'm not trying to explain their mind. No.
Not trying to say you are, but I don't think they think it's good. I think they know it's bad, but despite that, I want it to be legal. I think when I did wrong, I knew I was doing wrong. I chose to do wrong. I knew I was doing wrong, but for some fact in my life, doing this wrong was worth it. I didn't say, well, because I'm hungry, when I go rob this motherfucker, it's justified by the fact that I'm taking my kids some food. No, I did wrong to provide for people I loved. That doesn't make it right.
I didn't say it was.
Yeah, no. That's just the expression I'm saying. That's how I see it. I don't think people like that. You know, you're right. Right and wrong is subjective to a point.
Yeah, to a point.
But there
to
are
finite
things. Yeah, you know, okay. But there are things that determine that for you. And when you say, and Tequila's in the building, Queen in the building, but when you say human nature, you at your pure essence are not a human. You're an energy. You're more than that. You're in a human experience. You're in a human body, living a human reality. But you know, once that human dies, what you truly are moves on, recycles. So it's like, are we victim to the flesh we're in? Or
but that's our subjective thought. Not everyone thinks that way. Some people don't believe that. That's us. That is our subjective thought, as in us passing our energy and essence on. Not everyone believes that. Not everyone sees their body as a vessel. Some people literally see their bodies as something that is finite.
Shout out to Free Spirit.
And once that decomposes, they no longer exist. You know what I'm saying? So that brings about a completely different ideological thought. You know what I'm saying? As far as how one perceives war and peace, and how one perceives what is right and what is wrong. And I'm not trying to say that right is wrong and wrong is right. What I'm saying is that they both exist together.
Yes. But can I say something? It's just
absolutely. Shout out to Free Spirit. Shout out to Blue. Yes, go ahead, sis.
It's just a duality. Like you have love and hate. Like you have peace and war. Those are the dualities. Those are the dualities. They go together. That's why I typed in the chat that I agree with what's your name again? I'm sorry.
Brandon
My
Bay.
name is
Brandon
Brandon
Bay.
Bay.
Yeah, that's why I said I agree with Brandon Bay. Like they actually go together, believe it or not. I don't think they should, but I mean, but they do.
And
They exist.
that's my
It's a thin
core
line. It's
understanding.
a thin line between, you know how they say love and hate, good and evil, um, war and peace. There's very thin lines between all of that.
Yes, yes. And it's hard to say that one could exist without the other. You know what I
It
mean?
can't. It can't.
Because how would we be able to
Peace can't
determine what is
exist
good
without
if there's
war.
nothing bad to compare it to? So in essence,
Exactly.
how would we define good if all we see is good? Like if you wake up every day, everything is good, good, good.
You
How would
wouldn't
you
know
know
what's
what
good.
bad looks like?
Exactly.
I can't wrap my mind around that. Maybe I'm just that ignorant. I can't wrap my mind. I
No, you're
can't
not
wrap my
ignorant,
mind
Squab. Don't say
around.
that.
No, ignorant
No,
of the
it's just a
intelligence of
different
it.
thought process. It is a dual, but that's why I said it's a duality. Just like you wouldn't know what it was like to know pain if you never experienced pain. Let's say like if you never stubbed your toe, you wouldn't know that you
It
wouldn't
hurts.
know how bad it hurts.
Sure, but that doesn't mean that pain will come because you never felt pain. Like that doesn't mean like pain is necessary because you never felt pain. No, you can go
It's
without
not saying
pain.
that it is necessary, but it goes together.
It
You
does.
don't know, just like you know how that thing, how they used to say, I guess back in like in the day, like in church, like a testimony, like you don't know, you don't have a testimony unless you go through a test or something.
Mm-hmm.
That type of thing, like you don't know hardship unless you've been through hardship. You
Absolutely.
would think everything was just all rosy and peachy and cream and just lollipops and la la
But
land.
why
You know what I'm
couldn't it be?
saying? I mean,
What is gonna throw that off? If like real talk, if we ate food from the trees, we drank water from the river, we created these industries that compile food in grocery stores and water in filtration systems, plants. Like, what's causing the war? Everything is good. Everything is sweet. What's causing the war?
What caused it in the first place? Jealousy,
yeah, I would
animosity,
say yeah,
anger.
jealousy,
There are so
envy,
many
yeah.
underlying issues that could begin that. Come on now, you're again only introducing your perspective, and I understand it, Suave, but we have to take into consideration that it's a one-sided perspective. It's just your view. So you see that as good, but to someone else, they see your resources as beneficial to them.
And they're lazy and they don't want to do the good thing and do what you did to get them. So they decide to do the wrong thing, but describe it as good. Why? Because now they get to enjoy the luxuries that you fucking sacrificed to get. So it's like at
Mhm.
the end of the day, if I see you doing good and I come up and I peacefully ask, can you put me on game? I want my people to be doing good too. And they say, well, this is what it's going to take. And I say, well, I'm willing to do it. That doesn't create war. I can see the concern. I can see the issue. I can see the need to have what they have, but it's that weakness in you that say, I can't do what they did to get it, or I'm not willing to do what they did to get it, or I'm not willing to be to them
Some
who I would have
people,
to be in order for them to give it to me. Like,
some people look at it as I don't want to do all of that. I'd rather just take it. Doesn't mean it makes it right. Some people are just evil.
Right.
That's
That's what
just
I'm
what
getting
it
at. Like
is.
there it is.
that's an element you can't change. Just as
Yeah,
there's a
there
goodness in
is
your heart,
there are
there's
good
evil in someone
there's
else's.
good energy, and I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead. My
I
bad,
was
sis.
going to say that there's good energy and then there's bad energy, and we know that. That's why it exists. So some people have more bad energy than they have good. That's
Mhm.
just what it is. And some people have to have that control. Some people want to take over. Some people just want to be evil and mean.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
but that's but it doesn't take peace to start that, right? You know what I'm saying? Like they didn't look at peace and say, "I'm gonna be evil." They were evil.
Yeah, and it didn't take war to start that either. They're just evil.
Yeah.
There's no outside influence to that. Not necessarily. Not when it's at the core. It's just what they are. Just like your thoughts of doing good and being good. That's your fucking core. That's you. You can't separate that from Suave. The kindness, the goodness, the positive thoughts, you cannot separate that. Just like you couldn't separate that from something that's pure evil. Or someone that's, I don't know why I said something
but
like
I
that.
can say my kindness can come from my depression through my unkind situations I was born into. I get that. But how are you born into a kind situation and say, you know what? I don't like this shit. I want war. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't wrap my mind around it. I can see war causes peace. I could get people, and maybe like you say, that's my perspective. Because I can look at war and say, I want peace. And some people can look at peace and say, I want war. But
I think there's some things that we just don't understand. Like we don't understand why there are people that are born evil. There really are people that are like that.
I don't think babies are born evil.
I'm not going to say babies, but they as they start to grow up, you start to see these characteristics in some people.
Evil, yeah. People learn to be evil.
No, I'm going to say, but you can see characteristics in very young children and see that they have some like some really mean, not nice characteristics, and you could try to teach them to not be that way.
So I guess you know what? It can be born with some evil, like because babies learn in the womb, and if you're in the womb and mom and daddy is fuck you, bitch, nigga, fuck you.
All those energies are real. Let me tell you one thing. I was so sensitive. Like I'm a natural sensitive person anyway. Like I'm a Cancer, so I'm a crybaby. You get me upset, I'm boo-hooing. Anyway, not my youngest daughter, I cried a lot while I was pregnant with her. Like I just boo-hooed. And she literally has the same exact kind of emotions that I have. The same exact, like the same. She can feel everything I feel, and it's crazy. And she was like that ever since she was a baby. She felt, even when I was pregnant with her, like if I felt sad, I could feel it in her. Like she would just whenever I felt sad or I was crying, she would move a whole lot in my stomach.
You sometimes, yeah, I
she felt my energies. She felt my energy.
I mean, because she was you at that point. She was you, like your lung is you, like your heart is you. She was you.
So what I'm saying is our energies do pass. And sometimes some people are kind of born like, I'm not going to say babies are born evil. I'm not saying that. I'm putting that out there for the record. I don't want nobody to say Tequila said babies are born evil. No, I'm not saying that. But some people have that in their nature to be evil.
I got you. Queen Cascade in the building. What's good with you, sister? Farasha 70 also in the building. I'm going to go to her next. Go ahead, Queen. What's on the mind of the Queen? Good evening. And the floor is yours. What's going on?
There's a couple of things I want to talk about in regards to what you were saying earlier.
Okay.
Putin's had a stick up his ass for a long time. I don't remember all my Ukrainian history, but I believe that there are resources in Ukraine that Putin wants and doesn't have access to. If I remember correctly, at one point, Ukraine was a part of Russia with a number of other places, I think back in the 80s, the 70s or something like that. And they separated, and I think Ukraine became independent. Listen, I'm not sure if I've got the history right on that, so feel free to go and check the history out on that. Every decade, if people look into history, Putin has tried to start something with Ukraine. So I've been wondering on off who he was going to strike, because a lot of the time, if people check it, when it comes to serious world situations, And when it comes to things like recessions, and when it comes to what we've just been dealing with and are still dealing with in some ways, depending on what country you are in, when it comes to the pandemic, people's systems are down. We've had a lot of people who have, you know, died, grilled, killed, and all the rest of it. If people look at war strategies and tactics, best time to wait is when a country is on its knees to a certain extent and has their defenses down. So Putin has taken the right moment, and I'm not saying I agree with it. I just understand parts of it a bit differently in terms of him wanting more world domination, him wanting more access to resources and land and other things that most likely Ukraine have. And the Ukraine want to be independent from them and don't want to, they've got their own beliefs and systems that they want separate from Russia. And obviously, in one sense, if we look at the situation that happened with Haiti, in regards to the French trying to bleed them dry and trying to stop other countries from dealing with them so that it would make Haiti so poor to be able to come back to them. You know what I mean? Like the financial blackmail. In one sense, there's part of that going on with the Ukraine because Putin over the years has tried to strip the Ukraine of working with certain countries, of having access to certain resources and stuff, so that the Ukraine will be on its knees and beg Russia. But the Ukrainians are very proud, and they would rather starve and keep pushing through and working the way they have for the last how many years before the pandemic took place, and build themselves up.
Well, they've had help. They've always had someone to, you know, put encouragement in them. Say, hey, we got you, here's some resources. You know, they had outside people in their team that was, you know, look at NATO.
Yeah.
Why does NATO care about the Ukraine? Why did Ukraine become a part of them? See what I'm saying?
The countries that sort of surround the Ukraine, Poland, and is it the, I can't remember the other countries that surround it, but they have similar ethoses where they've been able to sort of back each other up. Now, on the other part, in regards to the African migrants, some of the ladies will have heard my stream the other day. I apologize because while I was talking about the situation out there, I had some articles up that I wanted to show people, but I didn't realize that it wasn't on screen. Okay. So back in, I think, around 2012, yeah, we had about just under 1.5 million refugees and immigrants from the Syrian conflict and the conflicts that were going on with Belarus and Afghanistan. Yeah. A lot of those people was split up and divided by the UN. So some people went to, as a part of that agreement, the UN created packages, and you know, different countries throughout Europe took certain amounts of the refugees on. England had a certain amount, Germany had a certain amount. Do you get what I'm saying? Then in 2013, because at this point in time I was traveling through Europe, I was doing assignments in Europe, there was a massive influx in African immigrants and African refugees and African migrants fleeing conflict from Nigeria, from Liberia, and other places. So what had taken place? Can I just share my screen a minute, Swat?
Go ahead.
So at first, this was the situation. Is my screen showing?
Yep.
Yeah. So at first, 2012 through to 2017, we had migrants from different asylum-seeking countries Syria, Afghanistan, Belarus. I think at one point, like 1 point every month, we were dealing with sets of immigrants coming in from different countries and then being split up. Some of the immigrants decided to stay together and migrate through different parts of Europe. What was taking place was with the African migrants, they were coming through the top of Morocco, and they were on dinghies, they were on pieces of wood, they were being saved from capsized boats. And the Coast Guard was dealing with a lot, the Italian Coast Guard was dealing with a lot with the amount of refugees that were coming in from North Africa to escape whatever they were escaping. So you had over like days, sometimes it would be 200, sometimes it would be 400, sometimes it was over 1,000. At one point, one year, there was 200,000 immigrants, refugees that were in 1 month that were kind of fleeing whatever it was that they were fleeing. And Italy was overrun and they couldn't cope. And some of the migrants anyway were moving through Italy to other European countries. So what happened is some continued on. Sorry, I've got a little bit of pain going on. Hopefully what I'm saying is again. So what kind of happened is all those immigrants were kind of divided up again by the UN. Yeah. Sent to Germany, sent to Sweden, sent to other countries. England took some of those migrants as well. Other migrants migrated through Europe. Yeah. Some of them got stuck between Poland and the Ukraine. Because of the issues with different migrants and different refugees that was going on at that point in time. Because people forget when you have refugees and when you have asylum seekers and migrants coming through, it changes the atmosphere and stuff. It changes the situations of what's going on within the country. So we had different situations where the violence increased with the Syrians and the Afghans, especially within the men attacking women. And then it settled down for a period of time as they got into education, as they started to sort their communities out, as they started settling into life in Europe. And then what happened was the same sort of thing happened with the African migrants that were coming through. So when I was in Italy between the time of 2013 to 2017, because I was actually going to move out to Germany because of my education, wanting to complete a degree in Germany. So I was out there continuously making friends, building up contacts, looking for an apartment. I'd been with my daughter out there to be able to find her a school, the Nelson Mandela International School. My partner was working out in Germany because of the company that he was working with. So it just made sense at that time to just fully move. So what happened was the influx of migrants that were in Italy that were moving through hit Germany, hit all the surrounding countries, and especially where I was in Germany, which was Berlin, which is like one of their top cities within Germany. So I've seen how there's people that have obviously Black that have lived in Germany and different parts of Europe for a long time, and they have been able to make their communities and, you know, fallen into life and prove themselves, you know, so to speak. Because, you know, I'm not going to pretend that in certain parts of Europe that there isn't racism. The places like Poland, Moldova, the Ukraine are very race loyal. At the same time, people have to understand the kind of violence that was happening in Europe from the African migrants that were there. My partner at the time, he was Nigerian Italian. His family had been in Italy for a couple of decades, and some of the family had spread into different parts. You know, when it comes to a lot of the continent, they will send their children to the most popular places that will make money. My partner found himself finding work in Germany because, with one of the big companies. Him and his family and other communities that were in Germany at the time, they set up soup kitchens. The government was giving food stamps and food aid. The government was giving housing for the migrants that they took on within Germany and the surrounding countries. There was a lot of effort put into, from what I saw. I'm just going off based what I saw, yeah, and the things that I've experienced, and the people and the immigrants and the refugees that I spoke to at the time. So there was a lot of soup kitchens set up. My partner and his family and their churches and other churches in the communities were giving out blankets because we had situations with underpasses where migrant communities were there, and you know, with children and families and stuff like that. The homeless shelters would try and take in the women and children for the women's ones, and on the men's one they would try to take in the men's. But obviously, when you've got two sets of different types of immigrants within the country, from the asylum seekers that were Syrian and Afghanistan and Belarusian, and then the African immigrants, the system was under a lot of pressure. Certain countries took on more immigrants and refugees and asylum seekers because places like Germany, they had a fall in their population, and the white people there weren't having as many children. So they took advantage of the situation and in having more migrants come into Germany, and asylum seekers and refugees and African migrants, because they wanted more people for their workforce to grow their industries, and just in terms of the future prospect with depopulation being down. What's kind of happened is that people don't realize is a lot of the immigrants, African immigrants and migrants, weren't taking up. Some took up the education, some took up the benefits and stuff that the UN and the EU had provided. But there was a good majority that didn't take up those opportunities, that headed towards being popcorn pimps, prostituting out women, Black women from their own community, as well as other women in the surrounding areas. And one of the famous parks in Germany that I'd always known was like a multicultural park, slowly over a period of years, then became a Black park. Now, Germany and certain countries within, certain cities within Germany, should I say, or certain European countries, they have different rules when it comes to drug usage and allowage. They have certain types of drugs that are, that can be used for personal use, and a certain amount. A lot of what I was seeing was a lot of the African BM were dropping out of college, dropping out of the placements, dropping out of certain work programs. They had taken to selling drugs. So the Syrians and the Afghanistans that were the previous drug dealers that were in the parks, basically the African migrant BM had taken over those kind of slots, and it became a war for territory between the Syrians, the Afghanistans, and the African migrant BM that were there. And then, like I said, as the Syrians and the Afghanistans settled into their ways of life and were sorting out their community, it's like the African BMs took over illegal activities. So we've had problems over the last how many years within Europe with scamming, with credit card scams, with scams over, like the American hustle when it comes to apartments and companies with the African migrants. We've had issues with people breaking into people's apartments. Crime rates went up. attacks, grapes, and other things on women went up. I was attacked a number of times, verbally attacked myself by African BM migrants within those collectives. One time I was with a friend and her husband, and I was there for an assignment, and it was like 72 hours non-stop. And we were in the train station, and my friend's husband, who was white, was helping me up the stairs because I was knackered at that point. My feet couldn't do anymore. And these two guys came out of nowhere, were cursing me, calling me a bed wench, calling me every name under the sun, calling me everything else. I flipped, I cussed them out because they didn't know who they were talking to, and they didn't realize that I understood some of the things that they were calling me in their language. And because my partner had taught me certain words, I told them certain words back and made them understand that, you know, I have a black man, I have a black partner, I have a black family, but that shouldn't matter. This is a friend. And what right do you have to talk to me those kind of ways? And cuss them out, because the way they were going on was absolutely disgusting. And I've seen a lot of that with other black women that were in Germany, the way that the African migrants were treating other sections of the community. So in one sense, I feel bad for the African community and the black community that has been there for 20, 30, 40 years since the war and had to deal with all kinds of racism, have built their communities up. You've got people that after the World War were tested on, that were castrated, that went through horrific things, that have been able to build lives for themselves out there, as well as other African communities that have built communities there over the years. The migrants that came in during the 2013 to 2017 caused unimaginable amounts of trouble. At the same time, you've got people who, say, for example, like you've got Africans that are here in the UK or in France or different parts of Europe that said to friends and family or people that they know escaping conflict, I'm in Europe or I'm in England, work the odd jobs, make the money, do what you need to, and migrate through Europe. So you've had a slow progression with different people migrating through different parts of Europe to get to places like Germany, like Sweden, like France, like England, which has caused a lot of problems with border patrol, which has meant more reinforcements in terms of their police. This was a situation that was.
I've been getting very triggered by your words, and I want to have this conversation. And I thank you for the information. I do.
Mhm.
Those black migrants have to deal with those black migrants also.
Okay.
Those just like I say, when black people in America, no, you don't got to stop your bill. I just want to point something out. When black people in America do things bad, I have to deal with that also.
Mhm.
But this is the thing that it does something to me.
Mhm.
You pointed out like reality.
Mhm.
European countries, you got Arab, African, different type of people migrating through. Of course, the easiest market to take over is the black market, the crime around there. You know what I'm saying? So it's like that's how society goes. Every great society started off on illegal shit. So when you come into a place, it's easier to find the drug dealer, find a way to get drugs, then find a banking job to infiltrate. There's levels to the shit. As time go by, and you see the ones who was here to do good stick to it, and they end up working class citizens. Corporate people, entrepreneurs, this, that, and the other. Of course, they don't get highlighted. Of course, we just don't go around. Look at that black man not disrespecting the woman. Look at that black man not disrespecting the woman. And it's, more black men on the scene than these two guys that's being offensive. But this is the issue. So it's like, if you bring that up, you attacking black men. No, she's not. She's attacking black men who do bullshit. And
Okay.
they need to be attacked. I don't feel attacked when she say the African black migrant, the African, black men in America are doing this, black men. They are. I don't feel attacked. Now, if it's hitting an emotional string, it's like, shit, that's shit I do.
Mm-hmm.
I'll bother a black woman when I see him with a white man. I'll take time out of my day, stop going about my business, and totally embarrass and try to harass the shit out this black woman. When people see people speak on that and feel attacked, what part of you feels attacked? What part of you feels attacked? Because as a black man, you don't feel attacked by black men when black men wear your uniform and rape women. That's when I feel attacked. That's when I feel fucked up. Like, motherfuckers is really trying to paint me as a demon. Look at all these black men telling the world, we demons, we savage. That's an attack from within. That's an anti-black man propaganda if I've ever seen one from within the black men. So now that non-black men, humans, including black women, say something about it, now they gotta feel some type of way. Why you attacking these people? Why you not? Why are you not attacking the people that are the number one perpetrators of the heaviest agenda against you? There's no way to say a black man is a piece of shit other than looking at a black man and he's saying, I'm a piece of shit. You don't need to go nowhere else. You don't need to go nowhere else. So it was a conversation that had many faces, many fronts. We talked about the Ukrainian, how the Ukrainian did the blacks. What was the truth behind that? We got into, how did this war start? Does peace start war and war start peace? She's going down the line. It's too easy to be that. It's easy to be that and be like, wow, what Queen Cascade is saying is infuriating me. It's burning my chest and making it hard for me to breathe. Or are you going to force yourself to fucking mature and say, that doesn't emotionally strike me? It doesn't. It doesn't. I don't feel I have to defend those Africans that were selling drugs and raping women. And I know that there were black people who were. All black people don't just walk around raping women. Like, we really got to stop trying to be so anti-black woman that we end up anti-black male. You're against yourself. Women want a better black man and you're in their way. Women want a better black man and black men is saying, I got mine, you get yours. Shit. Black men are saying a lot of things. But the one that's allowed to collectivize and propagate and rule and push his laws and expand this culture is this ratchet shit. That's it. You're not learning game. We're not getting better and better at marketing and stocks and realty and medicine. We're getting better at drugs, violence, fashion. We wear more gay clothing. That's what we're fucking. Meanwhile, little African dude then built his second car. He built his second car. The dude built a helicopter. His father took it apart. Every time I hear about that stuff, it's some little motherfucker in Africa building a car running off of water. Solar power. That's an attack on him. When black men move in this way like, we evil, this what we do. You criminalize your own communities. You justify over-policing laws. You're doing this trying to defend yourself against somebody who's trying to make a better you. She's trying to make a better you. And because it don't come on on a rose plated fucking, you know, goddamn tray with your orange juice and all of this shit, you don't like it. Women have kissed you, women have hugged you, laid with you, had babies with you, put you on game, spent their bread on you, bettered you, did all of this and that and the other, and woo, 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 woo. Couldn't sexualize your ass, couldn't beat you. And they're like, okay, there's not enough men for this to work. It's not. So black people, not just black women, but you know, niggas only feel threatened by women. They don't feel threatened by the men. That's why men are able to say whatever the fuck they want, and motherfuckers find some way to justify. Oh yeah, well you know, I got cheated on too, so you know I guess he said ain't no good women out there. Hurt people hurt people. There's no way around it. Hurt people hurt people. You have to be mature and understand what is going on. Despite what you think is being shoved down your throat, be a fucking man and study it. Do what men do. Find out how it works. What's his proponents? What's the fuel? What's the source of the energy? Like that shit is crazy. We can sit up here and say all type of goofy ass shit, but as soon as a motherfucking black woman stand up and say, well, this is how black women feel, here we go. Yeah. Just like nobody wants to hear their mama's mouth. Nobody wants to hear their daddy's mouth. Because what is their mama and daddy gonna say? My kids need to better themselves. My kids don't clean their room. My kids don't. Yes, you're finna be held accountable. And niggas don't like being held accountable. I want to just try and act like I know what. No, we don't need no directions. You better not ask them for no directions. 3 hours later, we lost. Because you're the man and we're just supposed to have this faith in you. And, you know, anytime you mess up, we're just supposed to forgive you. And, you know, whatever resources was wasted, oh well. He's learning how to be a man at 50. You're ignorant. You're ignorant and you're willingly ignorant. That's what's so sad. That's what's so sad. That don't take no food off your plate. That don't turn your girl away from you. It don't do shit to you but put a bug in other black people's ears that say, oh, damn, I got to stop acting like this shit is okay. I got to stop putting a gun in my son's hand and the girl booty cheek in his other hand when he's 3, 4. I got to stop introducing my son to violence and fucking sexuality prematurely. That's what it should make you do. If it make you run for the hills, you're the people we talking about. You just can't publicly do what you want to do because there are laws to stop you. But a lot of motherfuckers, if they could rape something, if they could steal something, if they could kill something and get away with it, you niggas would. Niggas would. And we got to be aware of that as black men. Everybody don't got the same heart as you. Everybody don't got the same intelligence as you. Go ahead, Brandon, my bad.
No, I wasn't gonna say nothing, but it's something that you be playing sometime, even though I haven't heard you play it recently. But from Leo Muhammad, he said, when you hurl a brick among a pack of dogs, the dog that yelps is normally the dog that has been struck. Right?
Yeah.
So
as I hit Doug Hollis Bay, is that the same sort of thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's exactly the same thing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
In essence, it's like if people are reacting to those in a negative manner, it would only allude to the fact that they're quite possibly the people that are being mentioned, whether secretly or openly. You know what I'm saying at that point?
Or they love people that are. They may not be them, but you know what?
They idolize.
Yeah.
They idolize people that are, and they make excuses for them.
Well, I'm not about making excuses. I live here. I'm the one that's seeing certain things. And I said from my experience and the things that I can speak on. And if people don't like it, that's their problem. I didn't see what was going on in the comments. Like I said, there was certain amounts of people that took up with education and doing the right thing and doing, taking the long, when you do the right thing, it takes time to get there. There's other people that wanted the fast cash and went a different direction. Now, when I was out there at periods of time, I've got friends from those different conflicts that have been out there, from those African migrants that I spent weeks with, that I traveled around with, documenting stuff. I wish I had all of this stuff now, because there's a lot of stuff from back then that's coming up now in the future that's really relevant. But I was out in Germany for one time for about a month, and there were these guys that were hanging around, and I spoke to them and some of my other friends who knew them, and I was asking them about what they were doing here and how they'd come through, and they were telling me different stories. They were all from different tribes in Africa, bar a couple of them who had made the maneuver. They'd lost friends, crossing over between Morocco and Italy. I'd listened to their journeys and all the different things that I experienced. I actually felt really bad for a lot of them that were putting their best foot forward. But like you said, crime and those things that are the easiest things to access are what people tend to head towards. And I also stated the fact that we had the same issue with the immigrants and the refugees that had come through from Syria and Afghanistan. Now, it's not my fault that these things are going on. I just live here. And as I work and do community or human fields or what we call public sector, obviously I work with these people because of how our funding and how things are set up. If you could share the screen for me, Swab. Things
What did you say? I'm sorry.
Huh?
Share screen.
Oh, okay, my bad. I got the wrong mouse. Okay, go ahead.
Let me see where I put the did I put it in the right place?
I want to know why these things can't be logically talked about. Why do people have to start attacking the messenger? Like, she's painting these fucking pictures like she's photoshopping these photos and these motherfucking studies and all this. Like, where is the higher conversation about it? If it's the truth, it's the truth. If it's not, it's not. But where's the higher conversation? Why does it always go to, I'm about to go to sleep. Oh, here she go again. Attack her. What is the conversation? People aren't mature enough to have the conversation. They just throw doubt, grab the people that already feel how they feel anyway, and they go in a corner and they end up talking about nothing.
See, if people look, I'm showing you the reports and stuff from the UN that states about the migration and the refugees and what was taking place. Like I said, I was trying to do a stream on it, but I didn't realize that I wasn't showing the screen to be able to show everybody the different things that are going on. And the fact that even at different points, I was out with my partner at the soup kitchen, helping, doling out blankets, giving out food, giving out essentials and stuff. I've seen some of the men and women, especially the Black women that have gone into education, who have gone into, oh God, what do you call it?
The judicial,
taking the different opportunities. You get what I'm saying? But it takes time for people to get to those situations. So and
a lot of the times, the aspect between a man and a woman is a woman don't got a choice. Exactly. See, even if a man, like both of us dead set, I want to go get a job and I want to go to school. But guess what? You got an option to go hustle and not get, it has a less chance of getting robbed. You got an option to go deal in those dangerous markets that bring money in today. A woman can't just walk out the house and be like, I'm finna go cop me a 16th and find me some crackheads and get some.
Very few women are able to do that, bro.
And that's a new thing because of what happened in the 90s. But we had that option, and as men, it's like, you know, you don't give a fuck about who can't go out and fucking hustle. You don't say, well, let me do this because since they can't hustle, I'm gonna do this. No, they just can't fucking hustle, and it's on them. So they have to stay in school, even when they don't want to. They know if they don't, I'm just gonna be sitting at home waiting on a man that went to school or selling drugs. I'm gonna be waiting on a man, and that's just a privilege that we have as men to not feel as threatened, to not feel as vulnerable as we choose to just gallivant throughout the world as idiots in our childhoods. That's just it. So yeah, and even when you want to stay straight, I could conceive that, like you said, it takes time. It takes some commitment, and then rewards start coming in. But when you're hungry today, you know what I'm saying, and you see a dope fiend, and they're like, "Do you got some work? No. Do you got some work? No. Do you got some work? Man, give me the $10. No, I ain't got no work. Get the fuck away from me. I'll beat your ass. You gonna take my money? Hell yeah, I'm gonna take my money because you finna spend it on crack and I'm gonna spend it on food. Fuck you." And then that's what you end up being. You just start robbing crackheads for their money. You're a criminal. But you really wanted a job. But you're in your second, third week of your job. You got a half of a paycheck coming. So you don't really get paid until 5 weeks into the job. School don't do shit for you until you fucking graduate. Like, you know what I'm saying? It takes some type of economic system to sustain and carry that until those chips start falling in. And it's usually, something that's not looked upon so goddamn great, Go ahead, sis. What you want?
And then there's other things like over the period of years that people have been here, depending on their circumstances and which country that they were in Europe, they were given different types of identity cards. But obviously people migrate and move, and people are supposed to come back to their original place to re-sign forms and do certain things. And some of the migrants and the refugees and asylum seekers weren't doing that. We had situations at different points where there was such a massive influx into Germany, and Germany was having to say to people that had come directly from Italy that they have to go back to Italy to go and do the paperwork and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. There were changes in the rules and different allowances made in certain respects. There began a massive increase in Black men that were getting with women, especially European white women, in order to stay in the country. We had the whole green card scams. And then there was, in certain European countries, they have the rule about if, the European woman or the woman that they're with has had a child, that man has to stay in the country to be able to provide and protect. So I witnessed for myself and heard out of other people's mouths the fact that they had purposely got certain women pregnant to be able to stay in the country. I heard that from quite a few Black men. And then I've had friends that live out there that were engaged to certain men, and it turned out they were using them for the green card to be able to stay in Europe. And these are Black women as well. So people forget about the long-term implications of things like this, and the resentment of getting into a relationship with women from other countries that you don't fully understand their culture, and the impact that has on children. So obviously they had a build-up of children over the last how many years, but in terms of obviously the provision and the protection from the migrants and the refugees, it's an issue, as well as like, for example, I'm one of 5. The second underneath me, my brother, he's an Arctic truck driver. He has been for a number of years. Parts of his truck driving was through Europe and through Scotland and different parts of England. it's got to a situation with the pandemic where he had to stop doing the European routes. But these are the kind of things that I'm about to show you that are going on now in Calais, at France, at different borders, where the channel meets the UK and different parts of Europe.
This isn't Calais, where tensions with migrants are well established. Ouistreham is a sleepy fishing port 4 hours to the west. It has 3 ferries a day to England, and that's why these young men are here. This isn't a one-off. It's happening every day and every night.
My life, this ain't shit.
They're mostly from Sudan, and almost all look like teenagers. On the edge of town, they sleep in the ditches. The police remove any tents they try to pitch. Every morning, they wait for the trucks to arrive. We follow one Bulgarian lorry. The first group manages to open the door, but none of them climb on. A little further on, the driver stops. He's clearly aware of what's just happened. So you can see he's just closing the door there, but there are some of the guys who were trying to get on the truck are already making their way up here. And seconds later, even before we were back in the car, they were past us and onto the truck.
Hell nah.
The route down to the port here is not like larger ports, Calais or Dunkirk, where motorways lead straight to the dockside. Here the trucks must snake through the town. It makes them much more vulnerable to this.
Hell nah.
The police do what they can with the resources they have. Around our car, the young men don't like being filmed. So even right in front of the police there, they're trying to get on.
Mm-hmm.
In all, we counted 18 young men get on. Most got off again. But 4, maybe 5, it was hard to see, made it to the port entrance. There, where every truck is checked, 4 were discovered. We can't be sure, but it's possible one remained inside. A little later, a few of them agreed to talk to us. How old are you?
I'm 16.
You're 16, and you?
17 years old.
17, and you?
16.
16?
14.
14.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're all from Sudan?
Yeah. Yes. All from Sudan.
And why England?
England is good.
How do you know England's good?
My family here, my brother, big.
Your brother is in England?
Yeah.
And how did he get to England? On the trucks?
Yeah, here.
Here?
Yeah.
He was here?
Yeah, in here I'm going England.
And he told you to come here?
Yeah.
Yeah. We watch another trucks dash to the port. And then an exchange with some locals and a moment we demonstrate the divide over migration that stretches across this continent.
J'habite ici
Oui.
et nous n'avons jamais été agressés. Bon, c'est vrai qu'il y en a beaucoup par moment qui courent après les camions. Sincèrement, on ne peut pas dire qu'il y ait des problèmes.
Un jour comme moi à Paris.
Vous êtes à Paris, nous sommes à Riva.
Nous, on a pris des agressions. J'ai été agressée par 7 Arabes dans le métro parce que j'étais debout. Eux étaient assis, mais ils sont venus me boxer. Mon fils s'est fait balafrer au visage, madame. Vous ne savez pas ce qui va se passer.
So as they keep talking, it's quite clear that this is causing real tensions within this community. And you can see the migrants are continuing to gather as they do every day and every night all across this village. They're not.
Hell nah. Hey, them niggas was getting that shit like, fuck this, bro.
So
is he snitching? Yeah, he snitched on his brother.
So people have to I know people don't fully get it, but at the same time, this has been going on for years, every day at different sleepy ports that go up towards different connections between the UK and Europe, the Channel Tunnel. So, and there's some places that are not experiencing violence from the migrants that have migrated through. There are others that are sleepy towns that are getting broken into, that they try and break into the cars that are parked there, that they'll try and get onto the ferries with the cars that they've stolen. So you know, I understand. I'm not saying I agree with everything. I'm just stating what I know and what I see and what I've
Yeah.
experienced, as well as, like I said, my brother's a truck driver. At one point, he had to stop coming through Calais and ask for another route. We're not allowed guns here. We're not allowed certain things here to defend yourself. If somebody tries to take over your truck, or he's had situations where he has to go around with a flashlight and a baseball bat and check under the carriage, and people have been inside, you know, had to call police and border patrol because there's people in between his deliveries eating the food, in between the mattresses. So there's different types of safety concerns and issues because of what's going on. And people have a right to feel a certain way if people are coming and even if they weren't migrants, or even if they weren't African BM, because, or you know, people of the black persuasion, because like I said, we've been through this with the Syrian conflict and the things that happened with Afghanistan. We had an influx of, you know, those people at that point in time doing the same exact thing. It just so happens at this point in time, it's with the African migrants.
Yeah, and they do that in Africa because a lot of places they have trucks that come through there with resources and places that don't got resources. And it's like, nigga, we finna jump on this truck and get this shit off the bat. You know, the majority of the time, you know, there's no absolutes or nothing. But they're not ever threatening the driver. You know what I'm saying? They gonna get the resources off that motherfucker. You come out, they gonna tell you shut the fuck up, move around. You see, even the police wanting like Billy Club, you know, like it's a tolerance to it. There's an understanding to it. Like, we get it, bro, but we can't have you doing this. The Owl Show is in the building. Peace to you. What's going on with you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm
Nice to be
hanging in
here.
there. I appreciate it.
I noticed your topic, so I thought I'd come in and chime in.
That's great.
It's funny. I'm slated to. I'm somebody who usually winds up a commentator or analyst on talk shows and podcasts and radio shows. So I was supposed to go on a show later on to talk about Ukraine, Ukraine invasion. So I thought I'd. Seeing your topic, I thought I'd chime in. I had seen some of the segment that we just saw. I was listening to the lady discuss. I think she was talking about her brother being a trucker and some of the things they're faced. First of all, let me just kind of get to the situation in Ukraine. I'm sure you've talked about it. And one of the things that I wanted to kind of point out about that is what I've noticed in looking at this war the past few days and the coverage of the war is I deliberately not looked at American news channels as a kind of experiment, just foreign sources, right? European or other news channels covering this war. And one of the things that emerges, and I think this is important for people of the African diaspora, whether you're African American or whether you're a British black person or what have you, to understand, is the now, obvious racism that has come out in some of this reporting. And it's been reported on a couple of places. I think TRT is one. We on this Indian network is another. Sort of kind of open racism that you see expressed in American and or Western media. I don't know, you probably have heard this, right? Where they're coming out and professing their sympathy for Ukrainian migrant people fleeing from Ukraine. They are, quote, civilized. They are, quote, middle class looking. They look prosperous. They look educated. If you go back to people from African nations and those from Syria and Afghanistan fleeing into Europe, were these words like civilized, educated, middle class used to describe them?
No.
No.
That wasn't the garbage.
were these people talked about in the same sympathetic and empathetic way that Ukrainian and thus European refugees, at this point refugees and citizens fleeing, are talked about? No. This is one of the things that I like to point out when I talk about racism, especially the impact of what I would say imperialism and colonialism. If Kwame Nkrumah, the African leader who wrote a book called Neo-Colonialism, were still alive, he'd have plenty of material for follow-up volumes to his book. Because this is what we're seeing play out in front of us when it comes to people of the African diaspora. The impacts of colonialism, the impact of imperialism, and just the plain impact of racism. It's open now. Whereas before, I mean, when you look at some of the, I'm talking about American, like CBS News, NBC News, BBC. People openly saying, one guy who was a commentator, he wasn't a reporter, but he was a commentator on BBC, saying blonde hair and blue-eyed people being killed.
Yes. Yeah, I saw that.
And he's upset about it. But when people in African nations are being killed, where's your compassion? When African migrants are fleeing and having to flee into Europe and having to flee through the Mediterranean on ships, on vessels, some of them barely seaworthy, where's the compassion? There is none. There's close the border, close up the lines, keep them out. They're an issue, they're a problem, they're an unwanted presence.
There's been like this global agreement to feel like that, right? Like everybody, they can speak their speech, but there's this underlying agreement that is different with them.
Yeah, that's a good point. See, that's my point. It's not necessarily open. It's a facade of maybe not hospitality, but of tolerance. It's the facade of tolerance, the facade of sort of goodwill. But the reality is not only seen at various times, but comes out. We see it here. I mean, when you look at Ukraine, a country that has embedded into its armed forces outright neo-Nazi and white supremacist elements, the former Azov battalion would be the Azov detachment. Is it any wonder that people of the African diaspora are treated badly once this invasion began, and they tried to flee to Poland? They tried to get on trains and were kicked off. They tried to flee to Poland and were denied. Is it any wonder?
I think there's this hope. There's a willful ignorance, right? Where we like, oh, let's talk about the missiles. You know what I'm saying? But as Black people, right? And people that's actually in tune with that conversation, you think about it, and then like, ooh, this could get ugly for them. Because I'm not for a minute. Remember, like, this was my first time seeing Black people displayed in this Ukrainian war. I've been seeing all white people. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, I know it's Blacks in there. You know what I'm saying? So they not putting the cameras on them. Why they not putting the cameras on them? Because things are happening to them. They don't want to,
Right. Well, first of all, people don't have a sense of the fact of the matter is that when you talk about people of the African diaspora and so-called Black people in Europe, I mean, it's a presence that has been there for a few decades, because you have not just so much Africans fleeing conflicts, regional conflicts in various African nations. You also have African students and African and people who are workers people coming there for work and economic opportunities, people going there to go to colleges and universities. So they're not there to just move there as a fashion statement. They're there because they need to be there. And they're there. I mean, it's just not unlike, I mean, if you look at Russia, the country that's invading Ukraine, you've long had African students and African people of African diaspora in Russia. I mean, that's obviously not going to be the focus because, you know, Russia isn't experiencing, you know, the impact of war right now. It's Ukraine, because Russia is the country that's invading and fomenting warfare on Ukraine. But what I would say is it doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, this is the consequence of racism. Excuse me.
Yeah. Go ahead. Queen Cascade, you want to say something? Then Tequila is back. She can get the floor to you. Go ahead.
Yeah. Obviously, the gentleman said that I don't know which part of what he came into when I was speaking earlier, but obviously I mentioned about the Syrians and the Afghanistanians and the people that had come through in 2012 and previous to that, and the issues that we had with them, which are similar to the issues now that we've been having with the African migrants and immigrants and asylum seekers. Now, if people believe there's no compassion in my voice about it, that's your perception of me. It's not that I'm not compassionate to what they're going through. I just have a different view and see different things, as well as living out here. Now, when it came to the asylum seekers from the Syrian and the Afghanistan situations out here in the UK, especially within the white media, have spoken about them like dogs. They've spoken about them to the point that as a part of the Brexit situation, they hyped up and created so much xenophobia here with the white communities. And as a part of the Brexit deal, was one of the factors was in terms of closing the border. Now, this wasn't through the Black community because we're not the majority, we're the minority. 17 million people voted us out, which were the baby boomers, which outvote us, the millennial generation. So I don't know what's being shown worldwide, but I can only speak about the impacts that I saw here going on at that period of time with the Afghans and the Syrians and the people that have come through. And now, unfortunately, you know, the situations that have gone on with now the African immigrants that have come through and passed through. Yes, in terms of, like I was saying, the government has put on educational programs, work programs. It benefited some of the countries in Europe to have, you know, migrants, whether it's from the Syrians or the African collectives that have come through Europe because of the depopulation situation. But on the flip side of it, if you're not experiencing the crime, the prostitution and everything else that's going on with it, it's very easy for us to criticize and say it should be done this way. But I'm not the person that's dealing with the UN and the way that the African government has been very quiet over different situations that have impacted different countries over the years. Yes, places like the Ukraine and different parts of Europe have cheaper educational fees. So that's meant that there's a lot of African students that have gone to those different universities.
Yeah.
And there's ones that have, you know, gone to the Ukraine in terms of taking up work and education there. But I'm not also going to pretend that they haven't had similar issues in terms of crime and stuff. So there are some countries that have seen what has gone on in other European countries, and they simply don't want it in their neck of the woods, and they will do what they need to do to protect it.
I mean, they have a history. They have something to learn from. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, as we build like freestyle, what is reality? Like they kind of have a blueprint. So it's like, they have a system to do things, and that's the system that they want to go by. So although they may here and there, throw a bone and this, that, and for the most, they're gonna stick to their guns and stick together because at the end of the day, they can argue amongst themselves, but once the overall is compromised, everyone loses. Go ahead, Tequila. Shout out to Snuggles.
Okay, so I just want to say, as a black person who loves black people globally, it hurts to see them being racially profiled. It hurts to see them being discarded. But most of all, being a black woman and a mother, I hate seeing black women and black children being displaced and discarded as well. And with that being said, I feel as though black people over in these European nations at the moment are being a bit too docile for my liking. Especially, the black men. This is time to fight, in my opinion. You fight for these black women and children and get them on these trains. I know that they said you can't go, but you mean to tell me you can't knock a few of them? I'm sorry.
What was confused?
White people over. Hold on, wait. You can't knock a few of those white people over, and get that those children and those women on those trains. And let me just say this. Let me say this. Honestly, on the other hand, I look at it like this. I don't blame Ukraine for doing what they're doing. I don't, because here's the thing. They're looking out for their people. They're looking out for their women and their children. And I feel as though we need to take a lesson out of their book. Like, we need to learn to look out for ourselves. That's why we're in the positions that we're in. We're not willing to look out for ourselves and look out for one another. We are so quick to just throw each other away.
Yes, I still blame them. I don't disagree with your second half of your point, but one thing that confused me is like, okay, they pushed y'all off the train, and then the white dude get off the train and walk around. I'm like, why he not getting this shit beat out of him? You know what I'm saying? Like, how did he just push your girl and your kids off the train and then get down and wait on the next train to push you off for, like, fam? But pushing yourself onto these trains, at the end of the day, I mean, what is that gonna do? They're like, okay, you're on the train, so now we finna take you where we was going and treat you like we was treating you. No, you're just apart from your people, getting dumped off at another point.
Okay, but at least you're getting out of a country where at least you're getting those women and those children out of that country where there's actually a war going on.
Hopefully. But that train can stop at the next post, put your woman and your child the fuck off, and now they're in the middle of nowhere. Because that's what I'm saying. Assuming that you get them on the train and that it just goes to its destination, and then fuck it, you made it, you okay. That's a hope. You know what I'm saying? That people are willing to take. Like, if I get on this train,
my thing is, I feel like the reason why black people are globally, the reason why we are in the positions that we are in is because we are too docile, especially our men. I'm sorry, I'm saying it. Our men are too docile. Y'all don't fight enough for us.
Well, yeah, I clearly see that, but that's not the whole reason why we're where we're at. But I do see that would help. But the thing is, and it's a hard fate, and no one, gonna give a fuck because you're a man. That's just what you is. So it's like we have to go out there and compete in killing. That's what we have to do. That is what people telling us to do. Go out there and compete in killing with a lack of resources, being a minority, up against the majority who has money to burn. That's not intelligent at all. So it's like, so what? Die. I die, and then what? What happens to you when we all die? They're gonna be like, damn, them black men died in honor. We gonna treat these women and kids right. No, that's not what's gonna happen. The thing is, you put yourself in a tough position. You know, you played the game, and now you want to stop and start talking about it.
So I just have a question. So
right. That's a pragmatic
here's my
point.
question. I get what you all are saying too. Like, so okay, if something happened and all the men are gone, and then it's nothing but women and children left, then what? I get what you're saying. So, but what's gonna happen once it hits our shores? Because we're the blacks here. So what's gonna happen here?
Shores. We're the blacks in a white. You could call it European. You ain't got whatever you want to call.
We're in a Western nation. It's the same
Precisely.
thing.
Well, see, yeah, that's the point. I remember being in a chat where they're discussing Ukraine, and I guess it was another person was saying, well, these Africans went to a white ethnic state, and I said, well, what do you call the U.S.? Who runs the U.S.? Mm-hmm. You live in a country that is of, by, and for people of European stock in this country. Mm-hmm. So when some people want to criticize Africans for going into Europe, first of all, some Africans have had to do this literally to save their lives. They've had to flee. They've had to try to get into whatever country they could.
That's not getting.
It wasn't a case, right? It wasn't a case of, wow, gee, you know what? I want to spend time in France. I hear the Riviera is quite nice. I think I'm going to head off there. No, it's not tourism. It's not hospitality. It's not relaxation. It's survival. It doesn't matter, in a sense, if they're going to colleges and universities. It's a form of survival. If they're trying to get jobs and they're trying to work, it's certainly survival. So you have to keep in mind. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so if it's survival, they're in survival mode at this moment. It's do or die. They are literally in war. Fight or die. Come on.
Who are you fighting? They're seeking.
Fight
they're
for
fleeing
yourself.
war. They're not fighting, trying to fight anyone. They're trying to
my
survive.
thing is,
You have to understand. They're trying to get out of Ukraine. That means they're dependent upon whatever nation, other European nation, like Poland, which refused at one point African migrants. That's the situation. It's not a matter of just simply physically fighting people. It's a matter of fleeing and trying to get into other nations for refuge. That's the situation for them.
So to my knowledge, that Poland is accepting African migrants now.
Mm-hmm.
To my knowledge,
yeah,
I'm not sure.
Probably.
So now that they are, what I'm saying is fight for your life. Fight for you to get there. Get there. Don't just lay down and just say, oh, I can't get on the train. Oh, I can't get out of here. Oh, I'm stuck here. Why are you guys doing this to us?
Well, in my mind, I'm going to rely on my resources, and I'm walking. That's not my train.
Right. There you go.
I'm not jumping on this train. Like, this is the people that we talking about train. I don't want to get on there. I'm finna to walk to Poland. Nobody can stop me from doing that.
That's precisely what they've done. That's precisely is what people have done. They've walked when they've been in Boston and they were surrounded. Yes. They walked. They did what they had to do.
That would have been
That's what they've done. Yeah, I mean, it isn't a matter of just fighting. It's a matter of surviving, and that's what people have done and are doing now. It's not a matter of being weak or being passive or being docile. It's a matter of trying to find
I think
refuge,
it
and
has
the
something to do
racist
with some of
reaction of
But I'm
countries.
sorry.
both.
But I'm sorry. I have to beg to disagree. We are weak. We are docile. We are. We are. We are. We are. And I'm sorry. I don't know why I feel like I'm about to cry and I'm getting emotional. But I hate to see black people displayed. I hate to see that. I hate it, and it bothers me. I hate seeing. I don't even like to see black men struggling and afraid and scared. Like I hate it. I don't like it. I don't like
Yeah,
seeing my people like this. I hate it.
I
And
think it
it's
has.
very frustrating. And the fact that I feel like we, over years and over years and over years, have let people do things to us over and over and over and have not fought like we should have fought, it bothers me. And that's all I'm going to say.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely. No, I
that's
think
the
both.
difference here.
I think it has something
Go
to do
ahead.
with
Sorry.
both, and then I'll go to you, Al. Show
Okay, go
because
ahead.
as a man, you got like I can't. I'm not a woman, the mind of a woman, right? But I know as a man how men look at women. It's handicapping because you're a man looking at a woman. I can conceive a woman looking at a man, and I talk to a lot of women all throughout my life, and the most thing I got is, do you got you a man? Like, do you got your car? It's a tool. It's something that provides and protects and does these things, and it's like, well, how does it protect you? When the monster come, your man's
Right.
supposed to stand there and fight the monster. Does he grab you and say, run in his alley? Okay, we're alive. Run up this street. We're alive. You know what I'm saying? So right now, like Shu said, I agree. There's a time to fold them. There's a time to say, grr, show your teeth. And it's a time to say, grab everything we can. Let's move around. And that's realistically what we've been in for hundreds of years, dare to say. Pockets of things that fight back, but like Tulsa, Oklahoma to me was like the best one, and it wasn't built militaristically. That was his downfall. It wasn't built militaristically, but it was the most powerful city we had amongst, at the top ranking. So it's like, we got to understand what system we in. We got to understand the politics. We got to take life serious. I don't think we generationally take life serious because we cannot conceive building something that don't exist right now. We're just trying to add to what exists. And these people are abandoning these things. These things are falling apart. Europe is falling apart. Europe is falling apart. And America is falling apart. But people are trying to attach themselves to it because it's better than what they had. So, like I said, if we concentrate our numbers, separate ourselves, and declare ourselves as a separate people amongst a nation, not like let's fight, but let's build for our own. Let's compete in the educational system, medicine, homeschool, grow our food, do all the things that we can to stay here and not participate in this culture of entertainment and all these other distracting things that we, engulf our money into, instead of something that sustains us generationally to put our kids in a position that they can open trade with other lands, and then real talks can begin. But unless we talking about doing that, we ain't talking about shit. It's no fighting, it's no surviving. You're just playing with life if you're not talking about doing that. Go ahead, Al.
Yeah. Couple things. One, when you look at people of the African diaspora in the US, the UK, parts of Europe, and elsewhere, even in places that where there are people of African heritage that aren't really well known, like India and Mexico, for example, as well as the Caribbean and in African nations. It's not a matter of being weak. It's not what the lady is bringing out here, to me, is indicative of false perceptions of people of African diaspora, that they're weak, that they're docile. This hasn't been the case. You're talking about generally people historically that have been through decades and decades and decades, hundreds of, a few hundred years, depending on the location, not only of slavery, but also of colonialism and imperialism. And in this country, not just slavery, but segregation and bifurcation. So it's not weakness, it's been strength and survival. And that's what you got to understand. You have to understand pragmatism, and you have to understand that it's a matter of living in the reality of the situation that you are. People make the best of things as they are, right? This is why people from certain African nations have gone to Europe, not only to flee wars and conflicts, but also to seek educational opportunities, to seek work, because they either couldn't find that to the extent or wanted to find that elsewhere. Again, you have to deal with situations as they exist. And the African migrants in Ukraine are dealing with the situations as they have in other parts of Europe, are dealing with the situations as they exist. The point that needs to be made is the way they're being treated, the way they're being excluded, the way they're being seen. It's important to know that so that you have an understanding of how people of the African diaspora are treated, not just in the US and not just in the UK, but everywhere else, because it's essential, it's necessary, right? I mean, you can't ignore it, you can't put it under the carpet. It's there. So you can do whatever you want, but you have to have this understanding. To me, it's a matter of pragmatism. It's a matter of it's an essential realism that you have to have as a person. In my case, I'm a mixed race person, though I'm half black. But you have to have a pragmatism about what your space is, what kind of space you inhabit in various countries. Like I said, when I hear people talk about, oh, these African migrants, oh, these African immigrants in these European countries, again, if you're going to criticize, keep in mind that if you're a black person in the United States, you are in a country that is of, by, and for people of European ancestry. It was built by them. It was created by them. The laws are written by them. And you're in that country. So if things go south in the US, say there was a major invasion or war, although you're a citizen, although African diaspora have been citizens in this country, so it'd be a little different situation. You're going to be impacted by war, just like they were impacted by war. The difference was they are immigrants, and they are people not from Ukraine, but they're in Ukraine for whatever reason, work, education, so forth. Again, you have to understand how the world works, and that's why I cite colonialism and imperialism, because these are remnants and tied to the colonialism and imperialism of the past. This is how it views people of African ancestry. This is how it treats people of African ancestry. And it's played out. That's why I cited the media, because media is very important in not only our current society, but in Western societies and other societies for quite a few decades. It shapes perceptions. It shapes ideas about people, right? And if the ideas are, we have sympathy for Europeans, we have sympathy for Ukrainians, but you don't extend that sympathy to people of African ancestry or Arab ancestry or what have you, that go through the same thing and the same problems. Again, we see reflected this colonial and imperialist mindset. And this, of course, has to do with the racism and discrimination that people of the African diaspora face. In this case, Ukraine, right? It's today Ukraine, tomorrow could be some other country. But this is what you have to understand. It's not a matter of weakness or docility or not back or anything. It's people doing the best they can in the face of a situation they did not create. You know, again, if something happens elsewhere, it could happen to people of other kinds of African people or people of African ancestry. That's what people have to understand. That's why I tie these things in. That's why I state this. right? You know, what people need is a pragmatic and realistic way of living and being in whatever society that you're in. You have to have it, because if you think you can just ignore it or put it under the carpet or just think some other way, when it impacts you, you will not be ready for it. You'll be caught unawares and unprepared. That's what I want to kind of stress here.
Appreciate it.
Well, and a lot of what you said is what I agree with. I agree with, if it can happen to them over there, it's most certainly can happen to us here.
And it has.
And it has.
In other
Yes, it
ways.
has.
Yeah.
And right. So I totally agree with those statements. But what I don't want us to stay in, as Black people, as I don't want us to stay in victimhood. I don't want us to stay in this. I want us to look at we are victorious people. We can come out of situations. We don't have to. I don't want us to stay in victimhood. That's all I'm saying. I understand that racism plays a lot into this to this global power, to this global system that we live under. I get it. I don't know. I can't even form my thoughts. My thoughts aren't even coming together.
I understand your point about victim. I guess you don't want Black people to be perceived as victims. You don't want them
I don't want us to be perceived as victims, and I don't want us to think of ourselves as victims. Yes,
but Black people are victims. I'm sorry, but Black people are victims. They're victims historically, and they're victims currently.
They're victims.
The issue is
They're
not
victims
just
historically.
victims.
Well, you know what? They're victims historically, but here's the thing. You know what? I'm gonna just leave it. I'm gonna
Okay.
I'm gonna let it go. Only thing I'm gonna say is, yes, I think Black people are victims historically. Currently, yes, we have situations that can make us victims, but the current knowledge that we know, it shouldn't keep us in victimhood. We should.
I get what you're saying.
History doesn't have to repeat itself. We don't have to necessarily stay victims. We already been down this road. We don't have to do it all over again.
It's the mentality of victimhood that
It's the mentality of victimhood. Yes, thank you. Yes, because I really could not form these sentences. Yes, thank you, Brandon. Yes, it's the mentality of victimhood. Like, we got to come out of that. As long as we keep saying, "Oh, we have been victims of racial profiling. Oh, we have been victims of racism. Oh, we've been victims of this." We're going to stay victims. We got to come out of that.
But changing the mindset doesn't change the reality. I mean, you can change the mindset and not think of yourself
Once you
that way,
change
but
the
it won't change
mindset,
the reality.
you can change your reality. You keep thinking, if you
Not
keep
really.
thinking these, yes.
Well, the thing is that it's different strokes for different folks. Some people saw the problem and said, we need to solve it. And some people still haven't saw the problem. And so now there's we can't play victim, stand up. Nobody's whipping you. Nobody's enslaving you. Nobody's, raping you. Nobody's this, that, and the other. We're just going through the horrible things. You should be doing something, Black men. We're tired of waiting on you. And then, so it's like they're waiting on the worst of Black men to kick in and say, you know what, let's be men. And then there's the obvious side where people were like, well, I'm not doing none of those things, you know. But once again, the thing that the women have been pointing out is that there's a collective accepted culture of ratchetness. We're not pushing around certain things that benefit us. The only things that's growing and prospering are the things that really, you know, do cause us harm. Where's the collective of where's the okayness of being positive black men that's not gangster street or ex drug dealers in prison right now? Don't got a lot of baby mamas. Yeah, that's that. But that's still like I see where that comes from, but that's a finagling of the mind where it's like Santa Claus. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't gotta know reality. Just know what I tell you and move how I tell you to move because it will benefit it. You know? So I mean both exist. It just depends on who you talking to.
Interesting. Um, you know, what you're speaking to is obviously kind of a different point, which is more the culture, more cultural, right? And elements of, and I think it's also tied to, I would argue, economics and class and other elements, right? Um, like when you're talking about sort of not so much having kids but for women, which is more personal relationship type thing, but sort of other elements that are, I don't know if they're glorified, but at least bandied about or talked about in the society. I think you have to, in that case, it's more socioeconomic elements, right? Um,
There's a
that are at
socio-economic
work.
elements, but there's also the fact, say for example, like I'll use this as an
Mhm.
example, yeah,
Mhm.
with the migrant situation. People might not like this example, but it's an example.
Okay.
Say for instance, with parts of the migrant collective, those that are fighting, those that are violent, those that are prostituting out women, those that are in these parks dealing the drugs and fighting for territory in those different places, and the crime rate went up. You're willing to commit that kind of violence, those kind of situations for your survival. But then on the flip side, and I'm not saying that it's their fault for where they are in terms of the Ukraine and all that kind of stuff, because there's a bit more to the Ukraine that I don't think some of the migrants that moved there, I don't think a lot of them really understood the climate before going there because of the way that they've migrated through. But the other part of it is now you are willing to sort of commit some of those kind of atrocities, those kind of violence against your own collective for your survival in those circumstances. On the flip side of it, now you're in another war-torn country where people are having to fight. Now, some of you have benefited from the system of being out there in terms of education, some being able to build a life. You've benefited from those part of those things. You want to build a life there in that country. You fought for whatever reason before, and you are able to do that. So why is it that you're not willing to fight now in a proper, I'm not saying that the previous situations that they hadn't been in terms of, you know, Africa were war-torn situations, but in this
Mhm.
situation now when it's deemed for you to fight, and the fact that even though there's men that have crossed over the borders and put their wives and children over the borders and the elderly and the infirm over the borders, there's men that have come back across to go fight for their country that could have stayed on the other side and just be like, I was with my family. But there's a whole heap of men that have crossed back into the Ukraine to go fight for what they believe in, for their country, for their democracy. But it seems like in a good part of the Black collective, in terms of the migrants that are there, they're not willing to do the same thing when it comes to the Black collective that's there.
Interesting point. I think part of what your point examines is also treatment, right? like you're saying that the way that people, the African diaspora, treat each other is different, and what they could do to each other is different from how they deal with other people. Would that be a good assessment of some of what you were saying?
Yes and no, because like I was saying, if you're willing to commit the atrocities, the violence, the crime that has gone on here, and you're willing to do that for survival, and now you're in a war-torn situation, because probably a lot of the people that came over during those migrations through Italy, through Europe, I hazard a guess to believe, because of the way that some European countries are more friendly and not as racist, or certain sectors are not as racist, that some of those that were trapped between Poland and the Ukraine, because of the way that they were migrating up, probably weren't aware of the historic racism and prejudice and discrimination that existed in the Ukraine and Poland and other countries that are similar to that. Do you get what I mean? But you decided to make a life in those countries and continue on in those countries with the racism. And now we're at a point of it being war torn and going to war. And other men that have had to put their families across the border have come back into the Ukraine and are going to fight. Men that are, retirement age, that are not even at the limit that they've put for 18 to 65. I think it was 65 or 60 to pick up arms. There's been 70-year-olds that have crossed back into the Ukraine to go and fight for their country, as well as younger men. So you were willing to fight for the collective in terms of your survival through those periods in migration. But now you're in this country, yeah? And you're partially, in some ways, depending on your circumstances, if you've taken up the educational or the work programs or whatever was offered to you at the time that you migrated to that point, now it's time to fight, and everybody else is fighting for that country that you're staying in and you've chosen to build and make a life in. Why shouldn't you be fighting also? You were willing to fight and prostitute out women and break into cars and drug deals and fighting with the police. You were willing to do that in terms of quote unquote fight. But now the fight is changed in a different way, and it's time to fight for this. So why, in a sense, should it be an easy passage out of fighting this situation? I'm not talking about the women and children. I'm talking about the men.
Yeah, I would say that clearly, apparently it means people are just trying to flee, right? So though you make, I think, a fairly lucid point and a fairly salient point here, I think just simply as migrants and as immigrants, I think they're looking at, hey, let's get out of here. Let's leave, as opposed to let's get our families out of here and then let's go back and fight, because they won't probably fight for a country that they don't initially come from, or they're not initially from. And that's what it seems like. I did want to ask you a question, if you don't mind my asking. The point that was made by the
I'd like to say something as well.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to ask her a question, and fine with whoever goes afterwards. I was curious about when the gentleman here mentioned about the culture within the U.S. in terms of people of the African diaspora. Some of the elements. I'm curious in regards to the UK. I believe that's where you're from, if I'm not mistaken. Whether there are similar elements or whether things are different, because I know many people of African diaspora in the UK are directly from African nations or from the Caribbean. I'm just curious about whether some of those cultural elements have filtered to the UK in some of the communities there.
There's similarities with the African diaspora in America and similarities with the African diaspora in the UK. People have obviously been coming over for generations. At different points, there's been influxes for different reasons, whether it's education or whether it's through the, you know, asylum seekers and refugees. Depending on where you live in the UK with the Black communities depends how it's set up. So in parts of London, like Brixton and certain parts there, it's very multicultural in terms of the Caribbean and the African communities. In other places, it's more segregated. The Caribbeans sort of stick to the Caribbeans and the Africans kind of stick to the Africans. In parts of where I am in the West Midlands, which is like London's the first city, Birmingham's the second city, Manchester is the third city. More so in Birmingham and parts of the West Midlands, what I've watched is over the last few decades in the way that the Black communities kind of spread out. There's a lot more interracial dating, and we've got a higher element of divested Black men, as well as the generations that didn't continue certain businesses. The Africans that have come over in the last couple of decades have more so bought out elements of what used to be considered as a part of the Caribbean community. So,
well, I just wanted to just briefly follow up before this gentleman says something. You mentioned that in some parts of the UK that Caribbeans stick to Caribbeans and Africans stick to African. I've talked to mixed race people in the UK as well as some Black people in the past, but I haven't heard about that part. So are you saying that there is a kind of, how do I put it, separation within, to use the umbrella term, Black
people have to
communities
remember
in the UK?
With the UK, and we've got different states. You've got Wales, you've got Scotland, you've got England, and you've got Northern Ireland, then you've got Ireland. And then there's some smaller islands, Guernsey, Jersey, and you know, off the main shores. So over a period of time, there has been elements of multicultural society. Like I said, in certain places, there's, you know, smaller towns, smaller white villages where there are not so many Black people. Do you get what I mean? I've lived in different parts because when my dad's job at one point led to living in different parts of the UK every couple of years at one point. So there was a point where I went to a place where they'd never seen Black people apart from being on the television. Now we're talking about 15, 20 years ago, 25, you know, I'm in my 30s now. At that point, certain people hadn't seen Black people or just apart from TV. I've got younger sisters that are in their 20s. We went to places in Wales when they were young, and there were white children coming up to my sister and touching her cheek and asking, is she made out of chocolate? Is she real? So there are smaller communities in England that don't mess with Black people like that. And there are other communities, like I said, I made examples of like parts of London where you've got Brixton, where the Caribbean community and the African communities and the other migrant communities mix, and that's very multicultural. In parts of Birmingham, in parts of the West Midlands, there's parts of a place like called Erdington. For how many years it was very racist. It was very, I'd say similar to issues that you guys have with the KKK. Do you get what I mean? So it wasn't a place that Black people really went. But then there are other places in Birmingham that are very multicultural where the Asian and the Black community live side by side together. There are other places where there's conflict. Do you get what I mean? So depending where you are in the UK, depends on what the different situations are. There has been issues in the last two sets of government because of wanting to close the borders towards the migrants from the Syrian conflicts and the Afghan conflicts and the African conflicts, there has been an undercurrent of xenophobia here towards the Black community. I've had politicians, you know, the people that come around and campaign on my doorstep. At one point, they were
Yeah.
offering, if you voted for them, £20,000 to go back to your country. I had a guy giving me a pamphlet on it and making me this offer and said, I'll get 10 grand now and I'll get 10 grand after I voted if I took up the offer. And there were some Black people that wanted to go back to their country and they sided with that party. And some of them are still stuck here and didn't get that £20,000 that they were, you know. So like I said, in parts, it's very multicultural. And we do have a high collective in comparison ratio with the biracial community because of different parts of the diaspora, you know, the Caribbean diaspora that came here through the Windrush generation. But every impact in different places has been different. But like I said, there's still an undercurrent of racism. Racism is here. It's just very subtle in the way that it operates.
Right. Yeah, that's my understanding. Yeah, but when you mentioned that politician, it sounded very Enoch Powell to me. What that offer was. I think the gentleman here wanted to say something. So.
Okay, no problem. Hopefully that answered some of your question.
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
Okay. Peace to everybody. I just wanted to say something towards the situation in the Ukraine that's happening. I met a guy out here in Dallas at a business convention, a business owners convention for Black business owners. And this was a year and a half ago. He moved to the Ukraine a year and a half ago. And when I met him, he was moving to the Ukraine. The way that his business is set up, he has a software company. So he doesn't necessarily have to physically be there in order to conduct business. So he's able to like basically remotely work from anywhere, which I think is pretty cool. But I kept in contact, got his number, stuff like that, and my heart goes out to the people of you know, of color that are in the Ukraine. They're dealing with a very different situation. As he's an immigrant or seen as an immigrant and not seen as a citizen, those who we're seeing on television that are arming themselves, they're citizens of these countries, and they're able to arm themselves according to the laws and statutes in their country. So what we're seeing is a very blind eye being turned to those immigrants that are living there, that are unable to get access to these resources. Hence the reason why most of them are just attempting to flee with their lives. They're dealing with levels of racism there that I didn't even know existed. This has started me on a path of research to better understand what is being dealt with in these other countries. But again, my heart goes to these people who are dealing with this current situation and circumstance, because not only are they almost prisoners in the Ukraine, unable to leave, unable to get around, unable to do the things that they were able to do before this war commenced. They're unable to arm themselves, while the citizens there are able to arm themselves. And these are the same citizens that I would, as I'm learning, may have had racist undertones or racial undertones that now have arms. So they're dealing with problems on two forefronts. They're not only dealing with what we're all seeing as the war commencing with Russia and Putin. We're also seeing, or we're not seeing, the war that some of the immigrants are having there, and the problems that they're having there, and the issues that are coming up now that these citizens are arming themselves and preparing to essentially go to war with another country. So that was my initial reason for coming up here. I don't want to say the guy's name because he's, from what I'm understanding, he's looking for all types of different resources as to ways to arm himself as he's attempting to journey outside of the Ukraine. And he's not found any prominent route to date right now that he has to get out. So and he doesn't want to leave his family, of course. So he's trying to keep his family intact and make his way out of there. And I feel as though it's a singular story, but it's a story that I believe a lot of the immigrants can relate to. In this tragic event, really, that's taking place. So I just really wanted to get that out because I found it very important that this conversation is being talked about, and not only that, that everyone is actually getting an opportunity not only to chime in, but to gain a better understanding of what's taking place abroad as opposed to what we're dealing with here.
I think your point is I appreciated what you stated, and especially when you mentioned that there was racism that you weren't aware of. I think that's what some of these migrants and as immigrants, African immigrants, and I have to admit, some Indian as well. They've had some issues, but primarily African immigrants have gone through it in Ukraine. That's one of the reasons I stress colonialism and imperialism and tied to racism and emphasize that. I mean, what I'm seeing with the Ukraine, I have to admit, I'm somebody who used to work in media, print media, as a former journalist. And I'm looking at this stuff, I'm saying they're not even dog whistling. They're just openly stating this. I mean, there's no effort to hide what little they're saying. I'm talking about the reporter on CBS News, the reporter on NBC News, the BBC, I think it's the French television network, BFM. Again, when you talk about not knowing about racism, again, I understand that because this is the kind of stuff that's kept hidden under the facade of supposed goodwill, of supposed tolerance. And when this openly comes out, you have to pay attention to it, especially people of the African diaspora, because you're going to get impacted by it. It will impact you in some way, shape, or form, negatively. And, I think the gentleman here, it's caused him to do some research and look into it. And again, I think that's positive. I think that's what people have to do at this point.
No, definitely. I do think people should research because, like I said, the world in terms of, obviously, I can only convey what I understand from the grassroots level of working in, I think, what you guys call the human field, which we call the public sector. Do you get what I mean?
Right.
I was saying earlier that the Ukraine itself is split and divided in its own way because of its own pieces of history. That's why I was saying with the migrants that were moving and migrating through, and some of them stopped in the Ukraine, I don't think a lot of them were really aware of the history with the Ukraine because I don't know if people remember things like Chernobyl.
Which is in northern Ukraine, yeah.
Yeah, so for people that are listening to this, if you research Chernobyl, that's a memorable part of European history where there was a nuclear blast and there's radiation in parts of the Ukraine. There's red zones where people were getting cancer and stuff from the, the toxic air that was around because of the nuclear blast. So in different ways, in different areas of Ukraine, you've got the rich parts that you're seeing that are being blown up or are being targeted by Putin. But there are surrounding areas that have been devastated in different ways, and there's different forms of poverty there. I don't think, you know, the migrants that were traveling through certain areas they wouldn't have been really aware of that kind of history. Do you get what I mean? There's certain history that's
Yeah.
when you live here and you're educated within the system, you understand certain things about it. But I just wish them all the best, and you know, hope and prayers that they get through this. I've seen the fact that Germany is, like a lot of the other countries around the Ukraine, are on high alert. Germany is sending arms over to the Ukraine, guns, weapons, and stuff to support them in their effort.
Not only that, the Germans have pledged to spend 2% GDP on their military.
Exactly.
So they're going to up their military. That's a very, very significant move at this point.
Exactly. And even
again, to your point of history,
for the Ukraine to, with everything that the Ukraine, if you understand the history and the point that they're at right now, and the way that during each decade, you know, there's been military assaults on the Ukraine. Putin has always been poking the Ukraine for the last, you know, how many decades that I've been alive. So at this point, the fact that Ukraine has even held out this long with everything that is going on is, you know, I commend them in the other way. Do you get what I mean? Because Putin's got unknown wealth right now in terms of Russia, and they're sanctioning him, and there's more sanctions coming. But deep down, he obviously thinks it's worth it and worth the sanctions to go in there and dominate. And I'm not saying I agree with that.
there are certain reasons. I got to be honest. In looking at this, because the last time I looked at a major, like a major war on a kind of day by day basis was the Gulf War, the first Iraq War of 1991-92. So it's been quite a long time. But oh boy, just overall in regards to this war, there's so much BS that I see with this entire conflict, not just in terms of the reporting, but in terms of the reality of this conflict. I mean, I'll just say, to me, from my perspective, I can't believe Putin actually thought that he was going to be able to invade Ukraine and entirely get away with it. I really, really can't believe that he actually thought that he was going to be able to do this. I mean, I'm just looking at what happened, and just from a PR perspective, a media perspective, a propaganda perspective, the Russians have been totally defeated. I'm not talking militarily. That's a whole other different story. The Russians have not been defeated militarily. They've lost men, they've lost equipment. There's no doubt about that. Yeah. But from a media perspective, PR perspective, the Russians have been and are getting defeated. I mean, this is a massive defeat for them in terms of the perception game. I mean, when you have all these other European nations that are not only sending arms, but you have Switzerland deciding, they will join in on sanctions. Switzerland, a neutral country, at least non-aligned country, deciding to join in on sanctions. You got Germany saying, we're going to spend 2% of our GDP on military. You've got countries like Finland and Sweden getting involved in their own way. I mean, this war is having a regional impact, a continental impact in Europe.
Oh yeah,
just alone, it's having an impact. I've not seen moves like this from these European nations, right? I mean, I'm just shaking my head at how Putin, who, whether you like him or not, is someone who seems to be a fairly intelligent and at least skilled political leader, whether you like him or not. I've never been a fan of Putin, but I at least kind of gave him, I at least recognized that he has some skill and ability, right? I'm totally, I look at this and I go, he really, really overplayed his hand here. And it's staggering to me how he could have done it. Go ahead.
Okay. When I originally came onto the stream, I was saying to Suave and, you know, the people that were in the audience that I don't agree with what Putin's done. I can see from a war tactics element that he's kind of chosen this period because of the way that the pandemic was, the way that different countries have been hit in terms of resources and stuff. There's certain things in terms of like pipelines and gas lines and stuff that are fed through from Russia, fed through Europe. So what you were saying about the sanctions and the power moves, it's going to be interesting to see how Putin decides to flex his muscles, because England is reliant on pipelines that come through from Russia or that are Russian-owned companies that are within Europe. And there are other parts of Europe that are reliant on Russia for certain types of resources. Do you get what I mean? So
most European nations are dependent upon Russia for oil and gas.
Exactly.
Germany alone is 50% of their oil and gases come from Russia.
Exactly.
So yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's been probably a factor for Putin. I get the feeling personally that Putin thought, because he has, as part of his rationale for invasion at this point, was he felt the European powers, the other European nations, wouldn't necessarily mess with him and mess with Russia because of their over reliance and dependence upon Russian oil and gas.
Exactly.
But that apparently has not come to pass.
Well, everybody's understanding the other part of the impact, that if he takes over the Ukraine and the surrounding areas, what's to stop him from maneuvering up further and dominating in other ways, and other resources that belong to other companies, not companies, countries. Do you get what I'm saying? So he's chosen war tactics wise with the pandemic, with countries being down with their GPAs, with the rate we've got the highest rate of inflation within 30 years here in the UK right now. And April is our new financial year. And other countries are going through similar. And then before the pandemic, there was other European countries that that had gone bankrupt and were reliant on Europe. Do you get what I mean? So in terms of the war tactics, he's chosen a good, not that I agree with it, but it's like when it comes to war tactics, if, you know, when your opponents are down, when the you know, the cameras, the security, you know, you make sure that there's certain elements that are down so that you can go in and take over. And that's essentially what he's chosen to do. Thinking that the rest of Europe would be like, we're not going to get involved in this because he can pull the plug on us at any time.
Right.
So
I think your point about his rationale is a again salient one. My argument is, I just see overall, I just see this as I mean, maybe for him on paper, he thought it was a good move. From my perspective, and in analyzing this, I'm just saying, I don't think it would have been a good move, period. After all, Russia had Crimea in 2014.
Sorry,
and as far as I'm concerned, they didn't need to invade, in my view. I mean, I understand what the strategic reasons were for Putin, right? But to me, an invasion, because the Ukrainians supposedly didn't really think the Russians would do it, which baffles the hell out of me. I mean, if you have a country massing on your border, thousands of troops, and they're sending up field hospitals, don't you think the possibility of invasion just might be there? Not just me, you know.
I think the possibility was there, but also because Putin has tried assaults in, I think it was 2000 and either 2014. I think it was 2014 or 2013. He
You know,
tried something
he annexed Crimea in 2014, right?
and then
And
there
then you
was
have the
some
two
other
breakaway parts of eastern Ukraine, right? Luhansk and Donetsk in the Donbas region, right?
yeah,
And as
yeah.
part of this pretext, I mean, as part of the pretext for invasion, he recognized those breakaway republics officially. But my point is that, I mean, I think your point is a valid one in regards to what the rationale might be in terms of the timing of the invasion. But from my perspective, I look at this and I go, this is a mistake. It's a clear mistake because you can't win the PR game with the US. And I'll be brutally honest. Let's not pretend that the US and the EU and NATO weren't screaming and yelling, the Russians are coming, and ratcheting up tensions. They were. To such an extent that the Ukrainians were telling them, look, you got to stop doing that because we don't want the Russians to invade. And now that the Russians have invaded, NATO and EU, who refused to allow Ukraine to join, did not want Ukraine to join because they understood that they're playing a chess game with the Russians.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's what people need to understand. The EU and EU and NATO deliberately didn't allow Ukraine because they understand, especially with NATO, if as a NATO member nation, if any member nation is under attack, they have to respond as per terms of the treaty. It's a security issue. That's why Ukraine has been fighting Russia alone. Because they're not a member of the EU. I mean, that's why Zelensky is, did his little theatrical staging of trying to join the EU. Because they've been trying to join, Ukraine's been trying to join for quite a while, for several years. And the EU and NATO refused because they understood that this could happen and probably would happen. That's what I want people to understand. This is something that's been deliberately allowed. Deliberately allowed.
On skirts. Everybody's trying to protect their own background.
That's what I'm like. I mean, the level of hypocrisy. That's what I'm seeing when I look at this war. The level of hypocrisy and it's just tragic and disgusting. It's certainly tragic for people in Ukraine.
Definitely.
And I would say the African migrants that are impacted by the war, especially, who had nothing to do with it.
So our show is going quiet.
Yeah, that
Which
is
part
interesting.
are you from, if you don't mind me asking?
Where am I from in the U.S.?
Yeah, if you don't mind me asking.
Oh no, I'm in Hawaii.
Oh, you're in Hawaii.
Yes.
You're there presently, or you're from there?
Well, I'm born and raised here, and I'm here presently. Yeah, I mean, trying to go because wanted to get back to the mainland, because I was living in the mainland part of the country, mainland part of U.S. for a while, years ago. But I'm trying to get back. But I'm here.
Do you belong to any of the tribes within Hawaii?
Oh, am I no? I'm not native.
Okay.
Tribe, no. I'm not like a native person.
Okay.
No. Yeah.
And what is the OWL show? Is that
Oh, that's just my handle.
okay?
My handle on.
Do you create content on YouTube? Do you we're talking now? Do you do this kind of like panels and
I'm on panels. Yeah, I go on panels and you know, if there's an interesting discussion, I'll go on a panel like this one. I thought, oh, this sounds interesting. I think I'll go here. Yeah, I've done panels like going on panels to talk to people since what, early last year, late 2020. I got interviewed on a YouTube show about something else and about a piece I had written for my blog. So about a guy called, well, I won't get into that, but just say a piece I'd written for my blog. But what part of the UK are you in?
I'm second city, West Midlands, Birmingham. So
Birmingham.
London's
Oh,
the
yeah.
first city, Birmingham's the second city, then Manchester's the third.
Right. Well, I'm familiar with. I certainly have heard of Birmingham and Manchester. I'm familiar with.
Okay.
I like Manchester United myself personally.
Oh gosh, a football fan.
Yeah. Well, so are you Liverpool? I gather
Pardon?
not. You're not a Liverpool fan, are you?
Oh gosh, my auntie I've got three aunts, they were into like proper heavy into football, and they were Liverpool supporters. I'm not a Liverpool supporter like that.
Okay. All
When
right.
I was younger, because of the culture, I was a bit into football. You know, back in the day, it was when I was younger, it was like wherever your hometown is, that's who you're supposed to support.
Right.
And then for a while, I was interested in Manchester United and Arsenal. I kind of roamed between the two, and it caused some conflict with the Liverpoolians. But for the most part, I prefer I prefer elements of basketball. I prefer netball, just sort of following like Venus and Serena with their tennis careers, because I found that all interesting. Do you get what I mean? I suppose because there's certain elements that we didn't really have here growing up in parts of the white culture here. Seeing Black people in the forefront in America doing the basketball, doing the tennis, doing certain things, my dad was more focused on showing me those kind of inspirational people when I was younger. So I kept up with parts of, Lakers, and I'm not going to say I'm heavy into it, but me and my daughter will watch it.
Well, I'm a Lakers fan. Yeah. In basketball. Okay. Yeah, that I'm a Lakers fan. So, but I'm not really into like NBA. I'm not really into NBA, even Major League Baseball. The only thing I generally watch here is American football, NFL, and but and I don't really get to watch. Go ahead, sorry.
So I don't choose a specific, like back when I was younger, like I think the early 90s when we came out to America. Yeah, I was like, oh, Lakers, they sound really, really cool. So I got into them for a little bit, teenagehood. But then as time went on, because I just generally enjoyed the game, it wasn't so much about the team, it was about watching the game and just supporting. And then I think, what's that all-star team that come every now and again? There's an all-star team that used to come and do tricks and do basketball games with some of the
the Harlem Globetrotters.
Yes, that's them. Okay. I caught one of their ones back in the early 2000s. That was really good. I think in Birmingham at the International Convention Center. And I think we've done one more trip when we took a community center of Black kids to some of their sessions, and for the artists and the stars that were playing at that thing to, sign their T-shirts, jerseys, and do the community element. So.
So are you involved in like a community affairs there in the UK?
For more than 25 years between England, the UK, the Caribbean, more so Jamaica, because my grandparents and my parents came over with the Windrush generation.
Oh yeah,
But
I started looking into that more because I'm mixed race and I'm on a group on social media that's about British biracial, even though I'm not British. So I've talked to mixed race people from the UK, and I know some things, but not entirely. I started getting into the whole Windrush thing, which I thought was interesting to me, the sort of history of it.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, and it intrigued me. Like one of the things that took me by surprise was the fact that Enoch Powell, prior to his Rivers of Blood speech, had gone into, I think as a minister, had gone to the Caribbean to recruit workers from one of these Caribbean nations. And when I found that out, I wait, what?
Yeah.
Enoch Powell did that? I mean, it was like, I never could have imagined that could have been true. But, oh, I see, Caribbean. Oh, so you mentioned that you're involved with, not just you. I guess you're part of an organization or organizations that deal with not just community in the UK and England, but also in Jamaica and the Caribbean.
It just depends. Like over the years, I've mainly worked more so within the Black communities, and because at different points I've lived out in the Caribbean and have family there, I'm very community orientated. So when I've lived out in certain areas, I've worked with those communities. I give back. I see what the community needs. My expertise comes from sexual health, around for over 15 years, CPS, social services, community centers, youth work, the artistic realm in terms of the therapies, mentoring. When I was younger, my family was very pro-Black and a part of the communities that were setting up African Caribbean centers and exchanges between Africa and the Caribbean, and, growth and what was the, I suppose, quote unquote, our version of Black power movements and civil rights back then. And obviously, as things have changed over the years, the community is more diverse, dispersed, and funding has changed essentially when it comes to the Black community and what's available and the things that were kind of going on with Europe. So it's just depended over the years where my expertise have been needed. With the situation that happened with Brexit and us coming out of Brexit and the whole pandemic, that put a kind of kibosh on things that we were applying for within the community here. It was kind of like a free-for-all in terms of everybody trying to get their project, funding for their projects and stuff. And the main places that were getting the funding was London, Birmingham and the outskirts. It was kind of what was left. But we're in a state of play right now where basically the government took, I think it's £1 billion out of children's and families, and mainly the Black community was affected by that. And our funding has changed in terms of, it used to be Black, and then you'd have the Asian community that would have their part, and then you'd have the other ethnic minorities. But then over a period of years, it became BME under that pot. So it was
I've heard of that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. Yeah, it's the what BAME. When I've been on the group, I remember that came up, and like that was the first time I heard that.
So
because I'm familiar with some aspects of UK history and so forth, or not only English history, but UK history.
Now it's BAM, which includes the other ethnic minorities, but it's gone from Black to BME to BAM, and it'll probably be some other variation in another few years. Have you heard of Akala?
Oh yeah. I discovered him because he's a mixed race guy. And I discovered him on YouTube, and I've seen him over the years. Akala, have you met him, or have you been involved in him in any way?
Years ago.
Oh, okay.
I'm at the stage now where I've taken a break to step back. It was always the plan when my daughter reached a certain age. And traveling internationally, that I would settle down into parts of motherhood and focus on that to get her through. So at the moment, I'm taking some time off. Obviously, the pandemic's hit everybody and our funding, so everybody's trying to just rebuild, regather, and see what can be done. There was projects that we were applying to do through the pandemic, but because of the way England was operated, those things didn't really get off the ground. So I offered services in terms of voluntary counseling, mentoring for the young people that are around me, because a lot of the community centers have been shut down and stuff like that.
Oh,
So
right.
moving forward, it's about the community activism. It's about pushing with getting the government to loosen the purse strings, because when we was in the EU, we was what a lot of the black community didn't understand was we were using the EU purse, the social
Precisely. That's why it was such a big
development
deal
funds.
because the EU had a lot of but in regards to England being a part of it or UK being a part of it, you had a
Yeah,
lot of economic programs funded,
exactly.
right? Like for education, you had Erasmus program, and so when the vote, not just the vote, but I guess eventually you had the deal. I guess the deal has already been made to leave
Hmm.
EU.
Hmm.
That will have an economic impact on the UK because you don't have those programs and the funding coming in, and
Exactly.
that trickled down to the Black communities and so forth. If I may
Definitely.
ask, do you have a professional background like social work or something?
I've worked with CPS at the time
Okay.
when I was originally going to look into being a social worker, and I actually applied
Okay.
at the time because I think I was about 18, between the ages of 18 and 21 when this happened. I was a part of like a special group that was put together by the government to look into the different situations within the foster care system, the children's
Oh, interesting.
services, because of teenage pregnancy and abuse that was going on within elements of the Black and biracial community. So because of that, we test drove some special qualifications. We helped get projects off the ground at that point, and we were able at that point in time to sort of do surveys, do sort of censuses of what was going on, and take that information back to the government and help to change certain types of laws like the Every Child Matter laws and other things at that point in time. I applied to do the social work because we were actually teaching social workers in university, because we were teaching social workers how to communicate with asylum refugees, migrants, children that had come through, the war-torn countries at that point in time in the early 2000s. And basically, I was turned down, but the lady didn't realize when I saw her years later, because I had applied a couple of times. What came up later was to do with my age. At the time, they thought I was too young for the course, unaware that I was the same person that was teaching their social workers and their staff, how to work with kids in care, social workers, and the
Yeah,
different
I mean
things.
that I'm looking at that. I'm going. It's kind of ironic.
Yeah. I saw the
I'm like,
lady years later, and she cussed me out. She was like, "Queen, I don't want to say my government name because there's trolls and
no,
haters
that's
and stuff
okay.
like that."
No, don't do that.
And
That's fine.
she was like, "Why didn't you come to the university and get your qualification with us?" And I was like, "I applied and stuff." And she was like, "What do you mean you applied?" And I was like, "I applied a number of times. You guys turned me down at that point in time."
Right.
So I carried on with the avenue that I was on. I studied other things that were open to me at the time. And it was always sort of a plan to later on.
Go and do that.
Yeah, basically.
What I'm curious, what did you study, if you don't mind my asking? Sorry to ask you so many questions, but
Oh gosh.
what did you study, if you don't mind my asking?
Listen, I took up everything that I was interested in at that point. So I studied sound engineering. I studied aromatherapy, Indian head massage, Reiki. I studied, oh gosh, race. There was a thing called, I think it was race relations and something else at that point in time. I've got a diverse CV in terms of the qualifications, the specialized qualifications that I received for sexual health, mentoring, counseling, and education. That was a specialized subject because we were like the test drive, the test dummies. And then, there was other ones in terms of what else is on my CV. I did Lambda. I did the singing qualifications. because ultimately I wanted to be an artist, but also
Mhm.
on the other end of being brought up with community activism, even though my parents didn't really want me in the music industry, because part of my family is the arts entertainment sector. They were like, we still want
Okay.
you to be able to look after yourself. We need you to get qualifications, education, so take up everything and anything possible
Right.
that's going to help you with different things. So I went that route and, you know, had the music on the side for a hobby while studying. I'm trying to remember all the other things that I studied. It was sexual health and education. There was elements to do with teenage pregnancy and stuff, because at one point I was teenage pregnancy and prevention and support for one of the states. First aid, youth and community and connections. I did. I was in university doing my degree in photography.
Interesting.
So, like I said, I've got.
It sounds like you have a diverse portfolio in terms of community involvement and application in general, and a diverse one as well. If you don't mind my asking, what university did you go to get your degree in photography?
I won't. It's in the West Midlands. I'll say that.
Oh,
I'll say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So it's like you've been involved in a panoply of.
Yeah. Education around contraception, education around race equality, education around. It just depended what I needed at the time that I was studying or what was open and available. Do you get what I mean? It's kind of like grab what's available. The parts of the pieces that were free, take those up, use them. They might be able to utilize them at some point in time. You know, if you're not doing the music and the acting, it's something that you're able to slip into to be able to pay the bills and stuff like that. And essentially it became a thing of kind of mixing the two in terms of creating projects. Like before the pandemic and everything hit, we were working with like Barnardo's and homeless shelters and the juvenile detention centers. We'd created a photography qualification, which we were test driving to be able to give, because a lot of the educational institutes here now require that you have pieces of education to qualify you to getting onto their courses. There were young people that were coming out of prison and juvenile detention, or just had homelessness, trouble with the police, antisocial behavior disorders. That had different disabilities. So we were working with them to give them qualifications to be able to go on to the next element of their life, whether it was attending college or university or getting into some kind of apprenticeship program. And that was being funded by the EU Social Fund. And then through, like you mentioned, Erasmus, we were doing community stuff with Erasmus for exchange programs with the university and parents and stuff, to be able to give them more opportunities, because there was a lot of opportunities for you know, single people, but then you've got mature people that are in education that needed a different kind of support. So like I said, it's just depended what city I'm in, what community I'm in. Like I said, when I was in Germany, you know, that was community action around thalassemia, sickle cell, lupus. And there was an educational institute, arts institute that was out there that was of a higher level and had more intricacies in their art programs and the master and mentor situation with the arts in comparison to England at that point in time. So it was just doing community work when I went out there in terms of what was going on. So the soup kitchens, you know, working with the churches that were giving out equipment to the migrants that were coming in over from Africa and stuff like that. And so hopefully that gives you some more insight.
Yeah, it does. Like I said, you seem to have a wide array of experience. quite interesting, even from a community point of view, like a community,
Yeah.
how do I, organizer or community, somebody who is involved in community affairs point of view.
Yeah. But as you're probably aware of, with politics and stuff like that, pots of money and different things change. Do you get what I mean? So
yeah,
as we've
it
come
certainly
through,
did with Brexit.
yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Obviously, we still got the ongoing impact. Like I said, everybody's at the moment is trying to get their businesses up and running and trying to find how we're going to move forward with the different community sectors and stuff for the young people, because there hasn't really been much over these last couple of governments and stuff. And now we're not in the EU. It's a redirection in England, rebuilding itself in certain elements. Especially when it comes to the mental health arena, because part of the health sector has taken focus off things like sickle cell, thalassemia, diabetes, certain things that were prevalent within the Black community. So as like, you know, with pandemics or certain types of situations, cases in domestic violence, mental health become the main issues. So I think that's where the government is heading in terms of its community funding moving forward. So it'll be pushing for the other things that we need, and using the things that they've put out there to our benefit.
Yeah, when you had mentioned Akala, yeah, I had discovered him on YouTube and found him actually quite interesting, and more interesting now because he's written a book about I think the ruin of the Age of Empires or something like that. And I found him quite an intelligent individual, intelligent guy, and you know, I kind of like the fact that, you know, he's, how do I put this? He's not just a rapper.
Yeah.
I'm not into rap, so, but that was part of it. Is like, oh, okay, he's this guy who's he's a writer and he's, you know, listening to him discuss certainly aspects of the, not so much the British imperial experience, but the impact to people of the African diaspora in the UK. Yeah.
I have a respect for the work that he does and the fact that his mum raised him to understand and get the education within terms of the Black history. Do you get what I mean? And passing that information forward. But
yeah, clearly a bright guy. Sorry.
Yeah, definitely. He's doing things.
Yeah, that was the thing. Like, oh, great. It's not, because I'm not a fan of rap music, and to be brutally honest, and it's not that you don't have rappers that are intelligent or anything like that. You do, but a lot of what they talk about is just so much rubbish and garbage that when I came across somebody like Akala, I was like, oh, wow, this, you know, he's talking about, you know, politics and all these other elements, and, you know, from a base of knowledge. And, you know, I don't know, I found him interesting. Sorry about that, but
no. But listen, it's a conversation, back and forth dialogue. You get what I mean? I don't want to go anyone. Just out here.
Like, I don't want to like. I'm not one of those people like in the 90s that was like anti-rap music and stuff like that. I mean, it's not my thing, but I don't begrudge people for doing it. I'd rather people go into rap music than go into crime, if that's the choice. Like,
I like how
I'll say that.
Yeah. Like the debates that he's going and having with Oxford about race relations and Black history and the different things that he's highlighting, as well as, I don't know if you're on TikTok, but he's got his page on TikTok where he goes into different elements of Black history.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's got a page on there.
I did see his Oxford lecture. I think it was Oxford Union. So I saw that. And it kind of corresponds with some other elements that I've looked at, which is that I'm familiar with, like Ivan van Sertima before, the came before Columbus. What's his name? John Henrik Clark, maybe John Buchanan. I can't remember his name correctly. And others. I mean, that's a whole other different conversation. But what Okala was speaking to was the prior civilizations in Africa and in African nations and their development. Songhai Empire, and I pointed this out a couple of times to people, but Songhai Empire, Mali Empire. Again, I know that's another whole conversation to have, which I don't want to go into now, but I mean, but it's not, how do I put it? None of that surprises me or is shocking to me. It may be shocking to a lot of people, I guess, because they never had it as a part of their knowledge base and information base, right? A lot of people of the African diaspora, a lot of Black people haven't, they may get some degree of knowledge, but it's not to that extent. It may be kind of what they do know is maybe a history that is largely either colonial and imperial and then post-colonial or mired in slavery and other things. But so the idea that Africans built cities and had, until in some places a lot of treasure, as well as developed certain structural components of society, within their societies, is something that's really lost to a lot of people.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, definitely.
Yeah. Right. What they get is a kind of diet of misery. Okay, sorry.
No. I'm listening. I'm listening to what you're saying.
Okay. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Al,
Yeah, good. Sorry.
do you debate?
Do I debate? What do you mean? Do I normally debate? No. Why do you ask?
Because this is like a partner channel to a debate league, and I would love to see you in a structured debate with someone.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I noticed that. I don't normally do it. And again, this is my first time here, but
well, your name is on Issues, the Argument League. It looked like the Argument League show.
Yeah, I mean, it's normally I don't come on, panels to like argue with people per se. I mean, I may agree or disagree, but I don't necessarily come on, hey, to fight. But it's something I haven't really done when I haven't been on YouTube. Might be interesting, possibly, but
well, maybe you should. There's no pressure. Obviously, there's panel conversations that happen over here, and that leads to people having disagreements about things, and then they'll want to set a debate about it. Do you get what I mean?
Right.
And there's a channel called SVDL, so you can look at some of the debates and see what you think, and just try it if you're interested.
I see. SVDL. I'll have to keep that in mind. Oh, sorry that I've kind of gone on. I guess I'm told I'm kind of long-winded. So.
No problem. Listen, I'm happy to have the conversation. Do you know what I mean? We're all learning from different elements of life and what they've seen. What you've seen, what Suave's seen, what Brandon's seen. Do you get what I mean? So it's interesting to have the conversation with different people.
Yeah,
and I know, people don't always agree with what I've got to say, and that's fine.
That's true.
People are entitled to their opinion, but I just wanted to sort of, with the earlier conversation, give different elements of context for people to understand different elements of what's going on and some of where parts of the prejudice, some of the prejudice, not all of them, you know what I mean, but where some of it is coming from and what's been going on in the last few years that has changed the kind of dynamic and shift and attitude towards Black people within the migrant collectives. So everybody perceives me from a different, you know, element of where they're at with whatever level they're dealing with or how they perceive me. So
but an interesting title for your show or your live stream, The Argument.
Say that again, sorry.
Oh, I was going to say he has an interesting title for his live stream, The Argument League.
Yeah. It's the name of the channel.
Well, I've unfortunately got to get ready for. I've got to go on a show and do an interview, so I got to go get ready for that. But I appreciate all of you having me up on the panel to talk. I hope I haven't taken up too much time. And
no, not at all. Not as far as I'm aware. I've enjoyed the conversation, and it's been interesting talking to somebody else who understands a bit more about Putin and, you know, some of the war tactics and stuff that happen with that.
And I've enjoyed talking. Yeah, I enjoyed talking to you and the other individuals here too. So unfortunately, I have to get going. But again, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem, man. We appreciate it too, man. Feel free to stop back through. Shout out to Al, man, and the Al show, man. Drop a show if you're gonna be somewhere else. People love your spill, man.
Well, I think I'm slated to go on today on a radio show called The Ocelli Effect, where I'm supposed to talk about the Russia-Ukraine war.
So if anything, if you've got a link, if it's okay with Suave that you can.
Yeah, I don't have a link, unfortunately, but but that's all right. You know, it's no big deal for me. But again, I appreciate everyone having me on. Appreciate listening. I'm told I can be long-winded, but
I have that.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Take care.
Right. Thank you, everyone.
No problem. You're welcome. Appreciate it. Shout out to Queen Cascade, Brandon May, man. Shout out to the chat, man. I appreciate y'all.
You're right over there, Suave. How's Queen Katrina? How's she doing? Brandon, you there?
Yeah, man, just taking hella calls. Man, I appreciate it, man. It's been one. Tonight, we supposed to be having something going down, so y'all already know, man. I'm gonna try to jump back on tonight too. To do a little something. But yeah, this been a bomb, man. This was fire. This was more than I expected, man. Shout out to Queen Cascade for, being someone first person view of things and sharing them with us. Shout out to the Al show. Shout out to Brandon Bay, man. Shout out to the chat, man. Y'all already know what it is. Swab Boss, man. It's Black Power, man. Shalom, shalom, assalamu alaikum, hotep. I say peace, all that good stuff, man, to everybody everywhere, man. Free Ukraine. All right, man. Peace to y'all, man. Love y'all, man. We out.
Peace and prayers, everybody.
Peace. I'm affiliated.